listening to a One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast that tells the stories of craft beer in Minnesota and beyond. So kick back, relax, and grab a cold one. The show starts now. Hey, a One Pint Stand listeners. For the first time ever, I am recording a podcast in front of a live studio audience. The show will take place on Friday, March 21st, starting at 7 p.m. at the Forgotten Star Brewing Company event space in Fridley, Minnesota. I've got some fantastic guests lined up for the evening. The first is Doug Hoverson, the author of Land of Amber Waters, The History of Brewing in Minnesota. The second is Bill Lendeke, the co-author of Closing Time, Saloons, Taverns, Dives, and Watering Holes in the Twin Cities. And my third guest is Chris German, a regional sales manager of RAR BSG. The event is free for everyone, and you can secure your tickets at eventbrite.com. Just go ahead and search Forgotten Star Brewing under events, and it should pop right up. Now, the doors are going to open at 7 p.m., and we're going to start the recording at 7:30, which gives you plenty of time to secure a seat and a beverage. If you are a Patreon supporter, your first beer is free. I would love to see as many listeners as possible. And go ahead, bring your craft beer loving friends. This is going to be a fantastic night of beer history, and you're guaranteed to learn a ton about why Minnesota is more than just flyover country when it comes to beer. So, hope to see you there Friday, March 21st at 7 p.m. at Forgotten Star Brewing. Cheers. Hello, my name is Dan Bobian, and I write, produce, and host a One Pint Stand. I'm ecstatic that you're listening. This episode of a One Pint Stand is proudly sponsored by Bumbling Fool's Mead, a fabulous and cozy meadery located in the heart of Northeast Minneapolis that serve balanced and complex meads. Check them out. On this episode, I popped down to Boathouse Brothers Brewing in Prior Lake, Minnesota to sit down with the head brewer and one of the founders of Boathouse Brothers, Emmett Swartout. Emmett is a fantastic ambassador of craft beer for Minnesota. He is someone who truly understands the recipe for running a place where people are excited to gather for craft beer and community. So let's head out to Boathouse Brothers Brewing Tap Room for my beer chat with Emmett Swartout. Cheers. Welcome to another on-location episode of a One Pint Stand. I'm your host, Dan Bobian. Today, I'm in Prior Lake, Minnesota at Boathouse Brothers Brewing Company. Emmett, thank you so much for having me down.
Dude, absolutely. Thanks for coming in.
And happy Festivus. We're recording this on December 23rd. I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan, but...
I am. We're doing the Feats of Strength ready, later, right? Is that our...
Oh, yeah.
That's
don't worry.
That's your Patreon edition?
I popped a muscle relaxer before I hit the car, so we're good. I'm all limbered up for that. If you could, introduce yourself by saying your name, your role at Boathouse Brothers, and give me your favorite winter beer style to drink.
Oh, solid. Yes, I am Emmett Swartout, and I am the owner and head brewer here at Boathouse Brothers Brewing. My other role would be, I joked earlier, as the, amateur electrician, midnight plumber trying to fix stuff, and then
Midnight Plumber.
Yeah, right.
That might be a great name for a band.
It could be. Yeah, it's my police cover band.
Don't stand so. Yeah.
And then the amateur electrician, plumber, and janitor in chief is my joke role, because I practically live here, so. Get to do a little bit of everything, but my official title says president to, or whatever I decide to fill out on any particular form.
Okay, cool.
Favorite beer style. I forgot about. How could you forget? I've actually just started getting into when people are doing the spruce tip, either in an IPA or doing it as like a Cascadian dark ale with the spruce tips in there.
Okay.
I've been loving that style. Normally, I can go for there's no one right beer for any and all particular moods, but it fits your style. But that one's just been a fun one to try when you get out and about and you see them at a festival, or someone's got just like a 5-gallon or an infusion keg on or anything like that. We did one last year and I really enjoyed it, but now I got to you're reminding me that I got to start putting that back in the tank soon here.
Yeah, that's cool. I think if my memory serves me correct, Alaskan Brewing, that was like their winter beer. It had spruce tips in it.
I believe you're correct, but I don't know.
And I can't remember
so
what
long since I've had a multi-pack from them.
Yeah, that was. I mean, we're definitely dating ourselves because like that was like 2010 craft beer.
Yep.
Alaskan was on tap everywhere. That was before the local craft beer boom, but this is when old man Bobian shakes his angry fist in the cloud. Bring back Alaskan. So I want to know, how did you become enamored with craft beer?
I got sucked into like the craft beer side of things back in college. There was a bar down the street from our senior apartment that was Betty Joe's, and they had on Mondays it was half off appetizers and $1 off of their import beers.
Ooh,
and it was
beers.
the Betty Joe's 66 Club, and they had a little punch card that you could go through. And so my roommate and I would walk down there on Mondays and pretend to do our homework. That's what we, helped convince each other that we were being supportive and study buddies. And we'd go down there. And
the library was too quiet, but the bar was right.
There's the old Russian proverb that's the church is near, but the roads are icy. And then the next line is the tavern is far, but we will walk carefully.
Yeah, that's good. I like that. Where'd you go to college?
St. Mary's down in Winona.
Okay.
So Betty Joe's was a 4-block walk. We walked carefully, even in the ice. Sat down, and then it was start at one. I think Curtis started at the beginning with beer number 1 out of their cooler of everything beers, and I started at, ironically, number 77 because it was the 66 Club. You only had to drink 66 beers, but they had 77 in the cooler that rotated through. So
nice.
I don't know. Go figure out that marketing. They could have sold an extra 11 beers to guys like us, but who knows?
Well.
But yeah, we punched our way through there just to earn a T-shirt and a sweatshirt, and I think it's still in my closet somewhere. But that was the first kind of, all right, the realm of craft beer and what was out there as far as smaller batches, and granted some of them were large scale imports, but it was still different than the keg beer that you're going to get in a red Solo cup at the party down the street.
Right.
So it was a little bit, all right, there's a flavor and you can appreciate what they're going for. And then moving on from that, I joked that when I kind of moved back to the cities after school, I was a card-carrying alcoholic at Old Chicago because they had their World Beer Tour.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was, I like this style of beer. We'll get, their mini tours and go through the Oktoberfest tours. Oh, I like this one. Not a big fan of this one. And at that point, I still didn't know much about the crafting or the actual creating of the beer. It was just, well, here's a recipe, and they make a good one, and they don't make one that I really like. And that's all I knew about it until we got a gift card for Vine Park Brewing up in St. Paul from my parents. Yep. And so my now wife and I and my brother, his wife, and my sister and her husband, we all went up and we did a brew your own beer and make your own wine kit, and hung out for essentially the cooking class that was, here's a beer.
Yeah.
And the guy walking us through it just said, well, we're going to be adding, and it was, we can add these hops. This is in the recipe. If we add them, earlier, you're going to get a little bit more of the bitterness out of them. If we hold that back and you guys want something that's more aromatic out of it, you're going to get more of those oils to stick around if we add them later or at flame out, that kind of style. And I said, oh, you can actually design it. It wasn't just luck of the draw. If you put everything in, and here you go. And so that kind of flashed, not necessarily the light bulb or whatever, but it just piqued another part of the interest. And I was like, all right, now I want to know more. Now I'd love to do it because I've been in the service industry since I was 18. And so everybody in the service industry on any disgruntled day or even a good day is just, when I own my own bar, it's going to be this.
Sure.
And I'm going to do this. And I'm not putting up with this. And this is how we're going to do it. This will be our Sunday special. And just all that kind of stuff when you're just rattling through your head.
Yeah.
And then that trigger went off, and it was, all right, when I own my own brewery, drunk around campfires, and I'm like, this is what my cream ale is going to be named.
That's
and
right.
Now I get to name the
beers.
beers.
We're not going to have chairs. We're going to have pontoon.
Yeah, we're going to have pontoon benches and bass boat seats up at the bar. And this is going to be so everything that you're looking around and seeing has been sketched out on either like cocktail napkins or receipt paper for like the last decade and a half, and then slowly approved by my wife as not too tacky. And yes, you're allowed to put that into the public eye.
good to have the commander-in-chief to run ideas by. That's very important.
Oh, yes.
Where did you grow up?
I graduated from Eden Prairie.
Okay.
But I spent my summers up north, a little bit north of Brainerd, on a small lake in Merrifield. So just south of Cross Lake, just east of Breezy Point.
Okay.
And so Breezy Point was where I kind of cut my teeth, so to speak, in the service industry. I got bartending at Dockside. So if anybody's ever been up there for Elvis Saturday at Breezy Point, that's where I learned the ways of the bartending and the service industry and all the shenanigans that comes up with everything that's entailed there.
Okay.
But so I grew up living in my grandparents' boathouse during the summers.
All right. Okay.
So that's
where the name idea comes from.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my grandparents had retired up there long ago, and before they retired, it was still their cabin. And my uncles lived in the same boathouse, 25 years before my brother and I did.
Okay.
And so it was just every summer. My mom was a teacher. We'd pack up the van on the last day of school, head north, and
cool.
We were just up north. Dad came up on weekends, but otherwise we lived up on the beach, and as close as you are to the sidewalk there was where the shore was for my brother and I. So we just set up the bunk bed, rolled out the carpet, and set up a TV for rainy days. But otherwise, as soon as the old Glastron boat was out of the boathouse, that's where we camped for the summer.
Okay, that's cool. Where and what did your mom teach?
She taught special ed. She just retired last year, actually, and she taught a couple different places. She was at Eden Prairie for a bit, but also in the Chaska School District, and then just recently she retired from the Bloomington School District.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, awesome. So she taught high school special ed.
Oh, that's tough.
That's no, she puts in a lot of work, and we always joke that she has the patience to deal with my brother and my father and I in the same way, and just being able to coach us through whatever, and a stern scolding hand when we did something silly. But she tolerated us, and one of my favorite kind of like side stories that she didn't even remember was one night my brother and we had probably had some friends over from Breezy as an after bar, and I would assume to guess that we were maybe a little too loud at the campfire.
That
had
happens.
A few too many barley pops, and shades drawn, hungover at probably like 12:30, 1 in the afternoon. Still, we hadn't moved from the boathouse, and she came kicking the door in to come get. I'm just grabbing a floaty toy or whatever. Just one of the float rafts. So I'm going to go lounge out, but I'm going to make as much noise as possible to wake up my hungover sons who are just
that's glorious
idiots, and just kick the door open, and it's scraping on the concrete floor, and we're just it's too loud. And she goes, it smells like a damn brewery in here, and then
the rest is
18 years later, now there's a brewery named after the boathouse that's great. We littered with beer cans.
That's awesome. Every brewery origin story is different, and the inspiration comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. But that's a really cool story. So this is my first time here, and you were gracious enough to give me a tour. Now, this used to be an old dive bar.
Yeah, and the old B&D.
The B&D. And we're in Prior Lake, Minnesota. And where we're sitting right now, this is beautiful. It's a huge kind of vaulted ceiling with some skylights and, I don't know what size timbers these are, but this is I feel like I'm in the Northwoods and there's garlands because obviously we're here for the holiday. But you mentioned that this used to be the alley between the buildings.
Yeah, it was the a side street alley with a couple trees in it. And so when they built this vaulted ceiling, the reason it's up so high and there's the 8 skylights that are up there is because there were 3 or 4 trees in this room that was part of like the dining room after. I believe it was after it was the B&D. It got converted over to O'Malley's on Main, and when they added this on as part of their dining room, they put in this expanded space, left the trees. But over the years, then O'Malley's became Memories on Main, became this other one. And this was, at one point, the dance floor of a return to dive bar status with lowered ceilings. There was probably a drop ceiling hanging from these beams. So you couldn't see any of that great timber that's up there.
Yeah.
It was just lowered ceilings with a bunch of disco lights and strobe lasers and stuff hanging from it. And obviously the chain smoking and partying of the 80s and 90s was not great for the foliage in here. So the trees lost a few branches.
Poor trees.
They went down. There was jokes that...
Please light us on fire.
and that was close to it, I'm sure, at some point with lit cigarettes in here. But there was a joke that bartenders' closing duties was, cap the liquor bottles, close out the till, shut off the lights, and then go to grab a flashlight and look for drunks hanging out in the trees trying to hide out.
Someday you got to bring that back for Arbor Day or something. Have a beer and be like, all
I'm
right,
not opposed to that. That sounds
tree climbing competition. If you can get to the top and evade security, you get a free growler or something like that.
We'll do that. We'll bring in some lumberjackers too and see what we can do for it, and just bring in a couple of extra pine trees. Maybe we can do that after Christmas next year.
I like that idea.
Extra trees next year.
I like that. I had a neighbor who had a similar fireplace thing, ornament decoration in their basement. That's very festive. This is like, I feel like we're in a cabin, a lodge.
The electric fireplace?
Yeah, the electric fireplace. That's good. I like that.
We had a gal last week. No, it was 2 weeks ago, but for a party, and she came up to my bartender and just said, it's getting warm down there. Can you turn down the fireplace, please? And she flagged me down. My bartender relayed that to me, and I said, yeah, I can go change it out to a 40 watt instead of a 60 if that will help, but I don't know what the light bulb's doing down there. I think it's because there's 60 people crammed into that room all still wearing their winter coats.
I mean, it can happen. Yeah, I'll turn down the gravity, too, just in case. So why, I guess I'm curious. You kind of gave me your kind of craft beer story. What did you study in college, and how did that, was it, because a lot of people, when they start a brewery or they get into beer, they're in some type of engineering or science background. Was that the case for you?
It does fit. I was biology, physical therapy, and kind of going down, we'll say that path, that road.
Okay.
And at one point I was looking into, all right, chiropractics as kind of a different field, and being sucked into the service industry, it kind of killed my passion for wanting to go for another 12 years of school and anything else doctorate-wise. And a bunch of my buddies are still the smartest people that I know, and they can still come have a beer here. But I wish I would have been able to pay more attention in biochem and organic chemistry and all that kind of stuff, because all of that is paying off now. And I have to relearn it as soon as we sign the lease on this place. Yeah. I'm like, all right, I got to actually figure that out. And why can't I draw out any of these chemical formulas? I still know what they do, but I wouldn't barely make it through a 7:45 a.m. class on anything like that. I function better from like noon to 3 a.m.
Oh, yeah. My best ideas come after 11:30 a.m. after I've had like 3 cups of coffee. But yeah, I'm no good in the morning. My poor first block every day, they're like, did you have your coffee this morning? I'm like, yeah, I did. Relax. Okay, we just gotta. But I had my 8th graders back when I taught at the junior high. I had them trained. I said, if you ask a question in the first 20 minutes of the block, if it is I won't say there's any stupid questions, but there are redundant questions. And so if you ask a redundant question, you risk getting your head bit off, because that means I'm only halfway through my thermos of coffee. So, like, if you wait 20 minutes into the block, you can ask anything, a redundant question, a stupid question, and you'll be met with kindness and grace. If you do it beforehand, I can't guarantee the type of response you'll get. So,
roll your own dice on that one.
Exactly. So, when did you decide that you're like, okay, I wanna open up a brewery, and how did you decide on Prior Lake?
So I had kind of, always been, like I said, kicking around that idea of when I own my own bar, and then it was, when I own my own brewery, and it just kind of was at a transition point. My wife and I had just gotten married. We actually moved down to Prior Lake in 2013.
Okay, all right.
So we'd been here for a little while, and it was just one of those kind of days where I'm like, I want to do something different. And I had worked retail and that kind of thing for a bit. And it was just, I wasn't psyched to keep doing that. And I kind of figured it was a now or never type thing.
Yeah.
And my wife backed me up on that, because she did essentially give me kind of as my brother would say, the old tomato. It was the ultimatum of you have 2 years to either make it happen or shut up about it for the rest of the time, because otherwise you're just going to sit there and be at every campfire of just, I should have done this. Or when I do a brewery, and like, that's great, you can daydream, but the rest of us don't want to hear about it for another 25 years. We were actually at a mutual friend's birthday party up in St. Paul, and they had a bunch of growlers from some of the breweries around the area. And I honestly forget the name of it, but it was something that had like a nautical twist to it. And I said, oh, they, stole my name for, whatever it was. And my wife looks at me. She's like, there's only so many words in the English language. They're all going to get taken eventually if you don't actually open up.
You got to get in.
And I was like, well, you're not going to quit teaching. And I'm like, I have recipes, I have ideas, business plan, and that kind of stuff. I go, you can't do it as one guy trying to open up a decent sized brewery. And we're not even that huge, but it's like, I can't do it on my own on that one. Points at my buddy Kevin across the way. She goes, ask Kevin. He's probably not doing anything. Nice. He said, he had like this much left in his beer glass that I'm holding on to right now. And he says, ask me what? And he says, I'm like, I'm like, you're not married. We hadn't seen each other in a bit, but we were old friends from up in the Breezy Point area where I bartended. And so we had the lake life kind of in common. And I said, you're not married, are you? He said, nope. I said, girlfriend? No. I go, any kids that you have to take care of? No. I go, you want to start a brewery? Finished like that last sip. He's like, sure, let's talk. And so that was a birthday party on a Sunday afternoon. And on Tuesday, we were kind of filling out bank paperwork to get things started and rolling.
That's great.
For that one. So, yeah, that was 2000, probably like 16 or so. Okay. So it still took a while to get it. We didn't sign the lease here until 2017. And it took us just 2 weeks shy of a year to get going. And part of the reason that it took us a while was my wife is from a smaller town south of here. And so she said, if you're going to do a hometown style brewery, because she knew the vibe that I wanted to go for and what we've got here. And this was, what it was going to be in essence. And she said, if you're going to do a hometown style brewery, it's got to be in our hometown. You're not allowed to hop a border and then go into somebody else's town and, profess to be the hometown brewery.
I like that. I like that.
So it limited our property search for a bit. And this place was actually taken when we first started looking around. And I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool. I wonder if we could revamp a spot downtown, like right on Main Avenue. It's super cool. The old bar that was in here had been, it was shut down for a little while and kind of vacant. And then when I went back looking again, like the next week, I was like, oh, there's a sign up. I'm like, oh, coming soon, XYZ bar. And then like the next week, coming soon again, like, FPT bar, just another couple of hours. Like, all right. They switched names like 6 times. I'm like, all right, who's actually taking over? And then Kevin and I, we were going through some of the, just like the loan application and that sort of thing. And our banker said, well, we have the lease on that building. And I think it's going to be freeing up here for you if like you want me to go talk to the owner or we have the mortgage for us. Like, all right.
Perfect.
So he kind of hooked us up with just the initial connection of, all right, let's talk and see if it's something that we could make work. Because we knew we wanted to be, downtown would be great. Yeah. Proximity to people is always fantastic in that sense. But also, the caveat is you give up space and the ability to do whatever you would want to create, all those we'll say napkin and receipt paper sketches is all right. How do we fit it into this space? So, but we gutted this place out and we took out like 5 30-yard dumpsters worth of stuff. The only thing we kept is the big timbers in this room, the brick wall on the other side, and the hood vent from the kitchen that's venting the steam out of my kettles. Like those are the only 3 things that took. Everything else got pulled down to the studs, and some of those studs got ripped out too, just to make a wider door over here or replace that fake fireplace.
Yeah. By the way, it's getting a little warm in here. I
can go switch it to a 30 watt if you want. There's a dimmer switch on it, I think.
Yeah. That's interesting. I think it's such a unique place. It's very cozy, and you've definitely embraced the namesake, Boathouse Brothers. There's a lot of different cool seating in the other room. I'm a sucker for comfy chairs. So of those pontoon benches, when I come here again, I will probably sit over there.
Oh, we
I'll
can
bring my
do the
water, my water wings. But yeah, this is really cool. When you told me that the first part was a dive bar, I'm like, yes, it feels. I was getting dive bar energy.
It has a skinny run and a long rail bar type vibe.
Yeah. Yep. It's really cool. You opened in 2018 then?
Yes.
Okay. So how would you describe the beer experience at Boathouse? If somebody has not been here, give me the elevator pitch for anybody listening to come down if they haven't been to Boathouse before. What could they expect?
The quick pitch on as far as like a beer the beer scene would be something for everybody. And that's kind of our aim. Like, we're on a very small system. I'm on a 3-barrel system, so that allows us the variety to be able to have plenty of different styles on tap.
And I should say I'm drinking the Candy Cove Kolsch.
Yes, sir.
And it's quite delicious.
Well, thank you.
And I've had several of your beers at festivals. The Pontoon Pilsner really wowed me. I've had your Oktoberfest before, so some of the things I've checked off, but you have quite a few. How many beers do you have on tap?
Right now, I think we're sitting at 20. We usually oscillate between 18 and 20, depending on variety. What's moving on.
Yeah, I'm excited to try more of those.
And that was our goal. When we were opening up in 18, we were, Prior Lake it's a growing city with a small town vibe.
Sure.
So there's still, some swanky restaurants in town where you can go have a fancy steak dinner and cocktails and a smoked bourbon, anything you want on that side of thing. But you can also go down the street to 3 of our other bars and, get $2 taps and a couple shots of whatever you're after, push until 2 a.m. On that side of things. So it's an eclectic blend here in Prior Lake. And we wanted to have a little bit of something for, everybody. And so this is turning into a very long elevator pitch. We're going to the top of the IDS here. So,
that's right. It's like, ding, ding. It's like that scene in Elf when he hits all the buttons.
It's like a Christmas tree. It's lit up. And so, we tried to light up our tap room with the variety that's out there. I always said one of my canned responses that I always give was, we don't want a group of 10 coming in and 9 people have to leave because one person can't find something worth sticking around for. Somebody that's even says, I only drink light beer, and they're going to go down to the VFW or Extra Ratings down the street and just say, yep, I know I can get, a light tap domestic for whatever I want. We want to have something that would at least pique their interest and make it worthwhile to stay. And we found that's where the Pontoon Pills came in, as quickly turned into our number 1 seller. Actually, just a nice, crisp, light, easy drinker. And before that, when we started doing it, when we first opened up, people would say, what's your lightest beer? And we played a game where it was take a sip every time someone asks you that question. And we stopped playing that game after
we need to hire a new bartender right now.
After
Jimmy's asleep.
week 2, we were like, all right, we have to stop that because we're getting hammered 3 hours into a shift and everybody has to just camp out and wait to sober up because everybody, what's your lightest beer? What's your latest beer? Like, I don't know, this is light in color, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's actually 6.3%. So you're going to not feel right if you get up off your stool if you're used to just chugging, the domestic yellows.
Yeah. I'm envisioning one of those big bells ding.
Oh yeah. How many times did it get asked? Here you go.
Take a sip. That's funny. Well, I appreciate that. So what's interesting is opening in 2018, that was prime when a lot of breweries they had 3 styles on tap. It was hazy IPA, aggressively fruited sours, and pastry stouts.
Yeah.
So you decided no, we're going to go.
And those took us a while.
Yeah,
those took us a while to kind of honestly, I don't want to say perfect because nothing's ever perfected, but improved on to the point where we wanted to make them we call them our anchors. There's the floaters and the anchors, what sticks around and what stays on tap. And then what we kind of trade out. And so, our hardest earn is our hazy IPA. And that took us a while to kind of dial in for what we wanted for keeping the haze around in the beer. Because if it conditioned long enough, it would drop out. And we weren't super happy with that. So we'd have to do small batches. And that's where it would just run out. And so we couldn't keep it on tap all the time for that one. So,
okay.
And so we're, dialing in with, all right, we started with cream ale, dry Irish stout, a amber IPA and an amber ale that, just kind of our garage beers that we were doing just down the road. I live 2.5 miles from here. So everything was brewed in the garage.
Yeah.
And that was one of the tricky things was, we brewed it using Prior Lake water, and Prior Lake water is great for yeast health. It's got plenty of mineral content and everything.
Oh, okay.
It's great for yeast health and, keeping a beer going, but it's just super, super hard.
Oh, okay. So better for lagers, right?
It works great for our lagers, but IPAs were really tricky. We had to put in extra fill. And the other part, well, not necessarily for the IPAs, it was because we found out moving from one side of town into here, we were brewing it and we were throwing in the same recipes for our startup batches and everything. And our IPAs were just kind of falling flat. They were just muted out and it was just stinging. And it was, there's so much more iron in this part of town, the pipes delivering all the water in it. So we put in extra extra carbon filters and a chlorine filter, and we just like tripled our filtration in here. We don't have room for a RO system, and I'm so small and rotating that I don't have like the time for switching in between of waiting for a smaller RO to recharge.
Oh, sure.
So we just had to go with like canister style filtration on it, but it does a heck of a job. And it's like that was almost a year into being open, so we weren't opening with just bangers of IPAs and kind of I don't want to say fitting the mainstream style, but those were super popular and they were really gaining a ton of momentum at that time, but it just wasn't our drive. So we were aiming for crisp, clean. We started moving into lagers when we first opened up. We didn't have the 3 tanks that are in the back left side of the cellar. Those were actually like, it was, we opened in April, and by May I was already shopping. I told Kevin, I'm like, I know we're, riding the honeymoon high of people are coming in to check us out. We have cash flow right now. I go, we need bigger tanks to be able to do some lagers. I need jacketed tanks for that. Our first 4 are not jacketed. They're like the coil chilling on the inside, so they're not great for lagers. So all of our lagers, we have to double batch. And I told him, like, I got to look at it. I just want to run it by. He's like, yeah, sure. He's like, whatever you think. And I pulled up Brewer in the very first, posting on their, consignment ads or the ads for used equipment was a 7-barrel system with 5 fermenters up in Elk River. And so I'm like, it is the closest possible spot to us. And so I drove my dad's truck up there and one at a time tipped a 7-barrel tank into the back of his truck and drove it down and put it up in the back. And actually we could only afford both space and cash wise the 3 fermenters. And so the 2 other tanks that were, we felt bad, left abandoned at the property still. The guy was selling with it is up at Ayer Brewing in Elk River too. So those guys have the other half, and we were up there, and it was kind of one of the, we didn't figure it out until I was up there for beers, I think like last summer or the summer before, and we were chatting. They were walking me through like, oh, we got this, here's our newer system. We got a 7-barrel. We actually bought it off a guy locally. I was like, oh, no kidding. And they're like, yeah, we got, and these are the 2 fermenters. Somebody like snaked like the other 3 fermenters that we were looking at. Like we showed up like 20 minutes too late. I'm like, if you really want to visit them, I know where you can find them. Like, you can come down here. We'll do a collab brew with the sister tanks on that one. But yeah, it was just one of those, like, we getting the lager style and just kind of making crisp, clean, easy drinkers was our drive, because we knew that would be approachable for everybody. But there's still somebody that's going to walk in no matter what time of year, middle of summer, and just say, you got any porters or stouts on tap? I'm like, we'll always have at least one. We'll always have at least one of those.
Especially if it's nighttime, I want something malty.
It's a campfire beer.
Exactly. Well, you were definitely ahead of the curve in that regard, because now, like, if you travel and go places, like, breweries have multiple different styles of lagers on tap. I think lagers are definitely having a resurgence, and I love a good, like, juicy IPA, but I was really frustrated when that was so prominent on tap handles at the cost of some of those garage beers, the old school style beers. And I think that I oftentimes lean towards variety, because I think you never know who's coming in. Your analogy of, like, if 10 people come in and leave after one because one person couldn't find something to drink, that's a problem.
Yeah, that's
and I don't know that is sustainable for craft beer as a whole. But did you, one thing that kind of popped into my mind as you were talking was, did you go to brewing school training, or are you just like...
I took a couple of the classes at Northern Brewer, right in Minneapolis. Like, shout out to those guys for, offering that to people like me that just wanted to brew in their garage. And, I did initially start with the concept of, what if I could turn this into a brewery? It's always been, I've been in the service industry. I know bars, restaurant side of things. I'd love to just focus on just the beer. That would be an awesome way to go.
Yeah.
I'd love to steer something that way. And if I could turn it into a profession or a career, or just a way to, pay the bills for the family, that would be ideal in every sense of the word. But also just learning it was super cool, because it was one of those things that organic chemistry at 7:45 in the morning did not interest me at all.
Right.
For the sake of, I don't care what attaches where, and this, molecule is going to bind on over here. And it was just too much for me and my brain to grasp at, 19 years old.
Yeah.
But sitting around at 30 and be like, oh, I can make a beer that my buddies and I can enjoy right here. Like, oh, write that down. Like these formulas aren't as boring anymore if you're learning the process behind it.
And I think that is the key to anything. Is like you approach something totally different if you're interested in it. Mm-hmm. And I think, you obviously, your mom was a teacher. Did you say your wife is a teacher as well?
She taught, kindergarten for like 15 years.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That is...
Hence why she can tolerate me as well.
That's right. I don't know how elementary school teachers do it. But, what I tell my kids, I'm like, okay, this is so boring. When are we ever going to need this? I teach English. And I'm like, well, I know not all of you are ever going to write a novel, but I'm pretty sure... those of you who are applying to college will need to write a essay to get in and think analytically, think critically. Like when you go to a restaurant, you look at the menu or you're shopping. Like if you are trying to figure out what pair of shoes to buy, for your money, how do you do that? We're critical thinking. Yeah. But, when you think about science and everything, I wish that somebody would have told me, at some point in your life, you're going to get into craft beer and you're going to want to understand it. And some of these things that you're learning in chemistry will be helpful to kind of wrap your brain around that.
Oh,
and
so I think that actually set my alarms those mornings.
Right,
that
yeah.
would have been great.
And it's for food, I love to cook at home. There's all sorts of science in food. I'm like, why did I always leave those classes early in college? It's it's Friday and the sun's out, so I can't go to that one. But yeah, I think that's important because when you are passionate about something, you just learn for fun.
Yeah,
and so I think that's the trick of in education. How do you get kids to fall in love with learning for fun? Because I think we're all capable of it. We just need to have that somebody show us that connection. And so, a lot of times when I'm talking to brewers, that's what they say. They just got curious. They cracked some books. They got the joy of home brewing, and then they moved into some of the different things. And all the books I have at home are all about beer.
Yeah,
because I've read the malt book, I've read the hops book, I read the yeast book. I think I read the foreword to water, and then I'm like, no, I can't do this.
The funny is, the water, I heard somebody phrase it perfectly, is water is ironically the driest subject to talk about in beer. It's important, but it is just, it delves into the very scientific, and it is very numerical of here's your exact science, where some of the other stuff can be more, it's up to you to decide what you like and can appreciate about a different kind of malt or the qualities of a hop and what their characteristics are. Yeah. You get into the actual alpha acids, there is some science behind it. But if you were just going on, this is the aroma and do I like pine versus guava? Yes or no. And that's your own pick for it. And that's where it comes more of the art side versus the science, where it's what they say, cooking is art, baking is science, and brewing, you have to go halfway between the two of them.
Sure. And I can't bake. My wife does all the baking. I do the cooking because cooking is that's kind of go taste as you go, and just kind of sometimes you stumble upon a new thing. And brewing, the more science the more tools you have in your toolbox. But you can make good beer without having a science background, as I've come to find out with a lot of brewers who I talk to that they didn't have a science background.
You learn the process.
Andy at Northbound majored in English and I think philosophy.
Yeah.
And, he just won a gold medal at GABF for Icebox. So it's all across the board. But that's fascinating. So beers for everyone. What's the vibe? How would you describe the vibe here at Boathouse?
Our other halfway tagline is lake life beer, and it's just, you don't have to be on the water or even anywhere near it. But if you want to enjoy the vibe of just relaxing near the water, Minnesota's got, 15,000 lakes. You might as well enjoy the vibe for both of those. So, like you said, campfire beers, or it's sundown, you want a porter or a stout or something with that malty characteristic. You want just a beer for cruising around the lake. We've got pontoon or, 5 other lagers that'll fit that vibe. You want something that, somebody would rather be having margaritas or you want that little pucker factor, we've got a sour or two on for you. You know, any way that we can kind of fit that vibe. And, you know, we've also shifted into doing a couple of those seltzers as well.
Sure.
You know, those have gained tons of popularity and started doing the slushy versions of them this summer too. Just something different for everybody.
Yeah.
As long as you want to do that vibe of we're just hanging out, lake lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, I love all that. So I'm getting low.
We should refill.
It's time for refill. So when we come back in the second half, I really want to kind of delve into some of the beers, and I want to talk about kind of some of the other craft breweries that are south of the river. And I think that a lot of the breweries down in this neck of the woods get a little bit of a short shrift when it comes to why should people come down. A lot of people love to stay in the 494 or 694 loop. So when we come back on a One Pint Stand, we're going to talk about that and delve into more of the beers here at Boathouse Brothers Brewing. So don't go anywhere. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Hopefully you're enjoying a One Pint Stand. My aim is to spread the word about craft beer. Enjoying craft beer is a passion of mine, and I love chatting about it with other people. A One Pint Stand has a goal of helping breweries tell their stories. I love to get out in and beyond Minnesota to visit breweries, beer bars, distilleries, and meet other interesting beer people. If you're also into those things, you'll probably want to keep tabs on the show. So go ahead and follow a One Pint Stand on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. I also started a TikTok account because I was tired of Charles calling me a boomer for not having one. I'd also appreciate any and all positive reviews on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts to help make it easier for other craft beer listeners to find us. If you want to be a supporter of this podcast with some of the extra change that you find in your couch cushions, I have a Patreon. Now, there are 3 different monthly levels of support, and they're priced at $1, $3, or $5 a month. If you pledge at the $3 or $5 monthly level, you get some pretty cool perks. So go to patreon.com and search a One Pint Stand to check it out. We're up to 17 supporters, and I am so excited for what that means for the show. If you like reading about craft beer, check out my written work on a onepintstand.com. I love to write, and that's where you're going to find a lot of the content that covers the local beer happenings and my craft beer travels. I truly appreciate you listening and taking time to enjoy our stories. Before we head back to the show, I want to talk about a fantastic meadery located in the heart of the city, Bumbling Fool's Mead. Bumbling Fool's Mead serves meads for all palates. Whether you like sweet, herbal, or dry, Bumbling Fools has a mead for you. Make sure you have their 2nd anniversary on your calendar. The anniversary party be on Saturday, April 5th, and features some exclusive one-day-only releases. The party will go from 2 to 10 p.m. and be a honey of a good time.
How about a beer?
Welcome back to the second half of a One Pint Stand episode down here at Boathouse Brothers Brewing. I'm being joined by owner, head brewer, what was the
Janitor-in-chief?
Janitor-in-chief, plumber by night.
Midnight Plumbers?
Midnight Plumbers. They'll be playing at Mystic Lake Casino in the big room in February, so get those tickets ASAP. Being joined by Emmett Swartout. Thank you so much for having me. This is so now we are literally facing. I've got 2 propellers worth of beers in front of me.
Yes,
and we're gonna sample through. So we in the first half, I was drinking the Candy Cove Kolsch. That was very good. So we have a bunch of beers here. What should I start with first?
So if you're starting just clean and easy, I think the Pontoon is a solid way to go. If someone's just jumping into their day and grabbing whether it's a pint or a taster. We always, the typical one.
Does it go reverse?
So if you start at 12 o'clock and then work yourself clockwise, that would be Pontoon. Yep.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had this one before too. It's very nice and crisp.
We typically bring that to a lot of the festivals. It's kind of one of those things where you like to have weird stuff out there to catch people's attention too. But there's also, I mean, there's 200 great breweries in Minnesota. So if you go to a beer fest, there's a good chance there's 97 beers on, scattered throughout that nobody's seen, that week.
Yeah.
That are just coming out. And so everybody makes their lists and goes to check out what's weird, but also we get plenty of people that come back and like, I got dragged here with my buddy. What's just a nice, light, easy drinker?
Yep.
And, here, try one of these and like let that be your gateway beer is what we kind of call them.
Well, and as we were up at the bar, I was just kind of observing, and there's a lot of people. So it's December 23rd. People are. I heard one patron say, I'm in the middle of Christmas shopping, but I guess I got distracted. So they're here.
Yeah, her line was, I was gonna go grocery shopping, but I just couldn't be nice to people, so I needed a beer first.
Right. So this breweries, not only are they great places to drink, they're really just keeping a lid on the holiday stress.
We're making sure society survives one pint at a time,
right? And that's and much needed now.
Yeah,
This is the beer. If somebody came in and they weren't familiar with craft beer, it's craft beer. Like a lot of different things, can be very intimidating. And I think back to when I was first getting into beer, I was super scared to ever go to the Happy Gnome. Because I knew they had like 70 beers on tap. I'm like, I don't know what I like.
Am I underqualified to be standing at the bar?
Yeah. And so, like, one of the nice things is if you can have an entry point or a place of familiarity to kind of at least start off. And I was, what's the gentleman's name behind the bar?
Dan is bartending right now.
Dan's the bartender? Yeah. Okay. Great name, first of all.
Solid.
But he said all the right things. Like one person was like, we don't like super hoppy. He's like, okay, well, we've got the porter, or just kind of like, and that's something that you'd like to believe that conversation happens at every place somebody's ordering a craft beer, but it doesn't always. And so just that idea of like, okay, let's start with what you like. Here are some of our options. What's the best thing to have?
We're willing, and I love when my staff is willing to, we'll say, handhold. Like, we can hold your hand through it if you've never been in here before or just never been to craft brewery before.
Yeah.
It's, where are you starting from? And then we'll get you the rest of the way there. If you're coming in and saying, I got pulled in because we're out on a family trip. We're in town, and all I drink is the lattes in my garage. If that's all they're drinking, like, all right, let's start with something crisp, light. Are you a coffee person? Maybe we'll run you to do the run aground and go with a coffee blonde ale where it's still light, easy drinking, but it's got the aroma in the nose. Yeah.
Well, and this run aground, the coffee blonde ale aroma off the charts. So good, so satisfying, so familiar.
Yeah, so we do essentially it's like a cold brew steep almost like as we're doing the carbonation. So in
no
secondary,
acidity to speak of.
No, we do,
which is great.
I think it's like anywhere between 16 and 18 hours, depending on when I wake up the next morning to come in and start kegging that off. But we do it in the bright tank, and we'll just dump in, a couple pounds per barrel of the just whole bean, vanilla, like almost like a hazelnut vanilla roast, and then we do Madagascar vanilla beans with it too.
Oh, okay, all right, yeah. This is a really good one. Again, on the lighter side, I think sometimes when people think coffee beer, they automatically assume a stout.
Yep.
And I like how, some places have really played around with those aromatics and flavors. Again, kind of like those comfortable, like familiar waypoints of flavor, but to put it in a beer that's a little different. I think, Insight also has a really good like coffee blonde ale, but this is
Banshee Cutter was what turned me onto it.
Okay,
I'm not a coffee person. I've never ordered a single cup of coffee in my life. And I think I've had like 3 sips out of my wife's.
This has been a fun time. We'll see you again next episode.
No, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I grew up, my mom being the teacher, but she was never a coffee person either, but she chugged Mountain Dew like it was going out of style. She needed the caffeine to deal with kids in the morning.
You cannot get into teaching if you don't like caffeine. That's not possible.
Yeah, but coffee was my dad's side of the family.
Okay.
But Mountain Dew, I definitely chugged my fair share of sodas on that side of things.
Yeah.
But then once I got into beer, it was, all right, I love the aroma of coffee.
Yeah.
It's a cool smell, but I just, that cup of spicy bean water, I joked, was not for me, but
spicy bean water.
But a nice crisp beer. Yeah, there's another band name. They're the opening act.
They're opening for Midnight Plumber. Get ready. You don't just book a night at the hotel. It's going to get crazy.
It's right on after karaoke. Maybe it is karaoke. Who knows? But yeah, it was just like, all right, that aroma in there. When I had that Banshee Cutter from Insight, I was like, all right, I dig what's coming out. You get the full nose, crack a can, poured into a glass, and it was there, but it was still just a nice, smooth, easy drinking, lighter colored beer, and it just didn't have an overwhelming side. The malt didn't overwhelm the coffee aroma. The hops didn't overwhelm, and it was just one of those cool styles. And I always wanted to do one, and we were tinkering around with what are we going to do with. We had a batch of blonde ale that we were splitting down for one of our Mutiny series. And we double batched it, and I said, "Well, what are we gonna do with the other half?" And one of my beer tenders just said, "Well, let's huck some coffee in there and see what we can see what happens." And I was all for it, and we tossed it in, started tinkering with ratios and how much coffee, whether we were doing grounds or whole beans. We settled on whole beans and the full Madagascar vanilla beans in there just to bring out a little bit of that sweetness and the. And it ended up balancing out really well.
It's so balanced.
It was originally just kind of a rotator that we'd bring in every now and then, and now if it runs out, I get yelled at. So I made it my point to try and keep that in the tanks constantly for it.
Yeah. Well, this is something I'm just curious about. How do you respond when somebody says I don't like hoppy? Because I think a lot of times when they say they don't like hoppy, they mean they don't like bitter, and sometimes. You might be like, all right, try our coffee stout. Sometimes a coffee stout will be bitter as hell and almost more bitter than whatever your house IPA is. It's like, well,
but if it triggers the right part of them, then they're on board with it. Yeah. And so sometimes we get people. I don't like dark beers because I don't like hoppy. I'm like, well, that's not exactly a correlation that you're going to get a whole lot when you're out and about there. I don't know if this is the first time or what, but we'll walk people through it and say, if you don't like the bitter side or do you not like the aroma, is it more vegetal? You want to get away from that in the nose, or are you actually you don't like the bite or that drier finish? What are you trying to avoid?
Yeah.
And again, that goes back to the hand holding of we'll figure it out for you. And I always say I'm happy to pour somebody 16 1-ounce samples to find them the right pint rather than sell somebody a 10-ounce beer and have them take 2 sips and walk out the door and never come back. Because who knows, maybe the other 15 beers in there would have been their favorite beer, and now they're a regular and coming back and, drinking in the boat seats.
Yeah, exactly.
At least once a week.
And hearing their flippers in January. Okay, so point me in the direction of, so we started with the pontoon pills. We had the coffee beer. What should I try next?
So if you're starting pontoon and you just keep going down that circle, so this is a new one we just released. It's the Bowl Hole Blonde. So Bowl Hole is a charity event that a local group does out on the lake here every February. This is their 10th year anniversary. They pick a local family that's in need for one reason or another. And then they do the event to benefit both that family and then the official 501c3 cause that's associated with them, too.
Okay.
So this year is for a family. They're doing liver cancer, specifically like bile duct cancer.
Okay.
And so it's a fun event. It's kind of like bags and bowling out on the ice, where it's like half-drilled holes in the 10-pin pattern. But if you get your ball to land in them, you get different point values associated with it. It's a great event. It's tons of fun. But they literally sell out their teams like within the first hour that it's online. So if you're interested in coming down and like participating in some shenanigans on the ice for a good cause, check out Bowl Hole. Those guys are sweethearts, and they came in and brewed the beer with me. So we got to design just a light, easy drink, and it's a honey blonde ale.
Yeah, it's nice effervescence too, which is kind of good. Still easy drinking.
Yeah, it sits in like the 4s for a percentage range, so you can still have a few. We tried to design something that you could still have a few of them while you're out on the ice and not worry about either slipping or finding your way back to shore.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so this must be the IPA.
Clockwise,
because I've got that nice little kind of piney bitterness, but very like the malt character is kind of very balanced. Would you classify this as?
I would put it in just that traditional American style IPA.
Yep.
It's using Chinook, a little bit of Mount Hood, and some CTZ in there. So,
that's very traditional.
It was, General Quarters started with a couple of my regulars that I'd see every Sunday night in the winter. They'd go out ice fishing, and they'd come in on Sundays and, cash what seemed like half of a 5-gallon keg or whatever. Just and if I was brewing in the back, I'd know when Derek and Gunnar were out front because I'd hear them take over the jukebox, and they'd always play The General by Dispatch.
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, if I hear that song blasting through the lower beer hall, I'm like, I'll go up and say hi to the guys because I know they're in and starting their little cool IPA kick before they head home for the night after a weekend of ice fishing.
Yeah.
And so eventually, and they would always clear out, they'd go hard for the CTZ IPAs that we have. And so just kind of BSing around every once in a while. And I said, when are you guys going to brew your own IPA? And so they came in, sat down, and we kind of designed a recipe for it. So that's why the General Quarters is, on a Navy ship, the call to battle readiness. But we had to get General in there somehow for them because that was the song that always queued me up when they were in drinking, and I knew I had to up my IPA production.
One of the things that I always like to ask brewers, especially, is that like how much time do you like to spend like in the tap room? Some brewers are very like, they want to live back in the brew house, kind of do their thing, play with the science, brew the beers, do all that, and then hang out. Yeah, but you seem to know. I mean, you've pointed out several of the regulars already since I've been here. I mean, is that part of like, when you hang up your brewer hat and put on your owner hat?
I don't get time to change. I come out dusty, and that's how Pete up at the bar knows if he gives me
guff about, are you working hard? And he sees
see if I'm wearing enough grain dust from mill, and he's like, oh, you are working today. He's giving me crap. But no, I enjoy brewing because I know that's that behind the scenes production. Just like I love decorating for Christmas. We got all this garland up. That's what my wife and kiddo and I do.
This is great. This
Thanksgiving.
Is so great.
We come in. The brewery's not necessarily open, but if anybody shows up and pulls on the door, it's unlocked, and they can come have a pint as long as they help us put an ornament on the tree.
I love that. That's great.
And we had a random family show up last year that thought we were open and came in, and I told them, I said, well, if you each grab an ornament out of the box, I'll pour you a pint, and then you can go on to your Thanksgiving dinner with your family. But they were just stopping through. But I love not necessarily behind the scenes, but preparation for the party.
Yeah.
And our party is not necessarily, it's not a rager every day, but we are open every day of the year except for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we'll, if the preparation is brewing another beer in the back and making sure that there is an IPA, there is a porter, there is something funky with, a sour, there is a coffee beer and some variety on there. I'm happy to be in the back, but I love being up front bartending. Like I said, I kind of cut my teeth in the service industry. I bartended at Breezy Point, and every day was new people too, which was cool. We had some regulars,
because all the resort traffic, it's different groups
rotates through it, and so I bartended plenty of different places, and just knowing that being up behind the bar that's my calm spot.
Yeah,
even if it's a crazy busy day, like that's what I enjoy.
Well, and I think isn't part of that like making the person who is coming in for the first time feel like a regular?
Yeah.
That's huge.
And
that makes me want to come back. When I go into places and, if I don't know anybody there, but somebody's willing to take time and chat, that's when I was first getting into craft beer before I was ever writing about it or doing a podcast. If a brewer came out and wanted to just, hey, how are you enjoying the beers? That just was so cool. I thought,
My staff, I catch it I feel like at least once a day or something if I'm up doing, all right, do a taste test and pulling something off the line, or just having my own enjoyment beer while I'm waiting for something to transfer. If I come up and inevitably at least once a day there's a question, well, that's the guy right there if you got a question, somebody, what is this? And my staff knows the beers, but if you're like, well, what is the goofy story behind General Quarters? And it's, somebody's bartending that wasn't here when we came up with it 4 years ago.
Yeah.
What is the story? I'm like, well, there's Gunnar and Derek were sitting actually in those two chairs when we were dreaming it up, and they were drinking this beer, and that's why this song is on the jukebox, that kind of thing. And it's just, there's beer. We always say beer doesn't have to be, and probably shouldn't be, the best thing in your world, but it should make whatever you think is the best stuff a little bit better.
That is great.
I'm putting it on a T-shirt.
That's going to be my next face tattoo. That's going to be my first face tattoo because the other one didn't show up. Yeah, you need lemon juice and candle wax. Yeah, you got to do that. I'm very Harry Potter at the time. I was very into that. No, that hits the nail on the head. I think that you said it perfectly because it's so much like, it can augment so many different things. I think of, the idea of just coming into a tap room and each one is different. Each vibe is different. And there are some people that are like, well, all the breweries are the same. I don't know. Why do you go to so many different ones? I'm like, then you're not paying attention.
Oh, yeah. No, you haven't sat down and looked around.
You don't understand. Because even here, like, there is a definitive feel to this place that you're not going to find anywhere else in Minnesota. This is very, very much this vibe. This is Boathouse. Like, this has a feel. This has a vibe. You're going to experience something different if you go further south, further north, like into the cities. But, like, this is its own place, and it has a lot of character.
Yeah, and
that doesn't happen on accident.
No. Like I said, cocktail napkins and receipt paper, and then Anne's approval is how it develops on that one. And and some of it is just kind of fitting the vibe of what's coming into our everyday life or what's happening down the line of, all right, we're planning for our Hearttoberfest in the fall, and what can we do? What fits in with that? All right, we've got that big Pop Tab collection box up there. Does that fit somewhere on our wall and it still fits the vibe? We'll go with it. If we're filling a giant canoe of Pop Tabs, then that would definitely fit the vibe. Or we got the little party boat that's over there that I just use for my ice tub for growlers when we do smaller tasting events. Like the goofy stuff that sits around that still fits the vibe. Thankfully, most of it fits our decor, and I can kind of get away with it. But there are times when you look around and you're like, oh, Emmett had a late night brewing till 4 a.m. He did not put that bag of grain away or whatever. And it also, if anybody grew up with me and saw the Boathouse growing up, they would know it still fits the vibe of the original Boathouse up north on Laugie Lake.
Now, there's a lot of barrels here.
There are a few barrels.
Are they
some
empty?
Of them are full.
Okay.
A few of them are empty. We had actually drained those out. We do have a couple barrel-aged bottles up in our cooler, and then a few of those are like the second half of it waiting to come around. So one of them is our Whiskey of the Mountain that we did. It was part of our charitable series. So we do Brewed with Heart is our charity series that we do. 10% of all the sales goes back to a specific cause.
Okay.
Generally, it's related to CHD or congenital heart defects. But we've also found other causes, like the bullhole that we were just chatting about is another. It's a valid cause. Here in our hometown community. Yeah. And we're happy to give back to that. But it originally started wanting to give back to congenital heart defects or the causes that help support that. Ronald McDonald House, we collect all those tabs for it. Obviously they are the cause for it, but we're happy to be a collection point when people are going through, 10,000 tabs, and you'd be surprised how much that actually, or how tight that actually fits into if somebody collects a bunch of them. But we'll pack those up and bring them up there for them. But also if we can just have a beer for a local charity, we partnered with Hugs from Hunter. Is a local charity, and they do teddy bears and blankets for kiddos in the hospital.
Oh, cool.
And it was started by the daughter of a couple that's here in town and another local business person.
Okay.
And so they got it going, and we actually saw them at another beer festival here in town, or a little tasting thing, and they were talking about their cause and how they want to do teddy bears, blankets for kiddos in the long-term, hospital stays, but also for their siblings as well, because they get stuck out there. And we're like, that just hit home to us because we'd spent some time at Ronald McDonald House and at Children's Hospital for our family stuff.
Okay.
And so I went up to him after and I said, just, thank you for what you do. I've seen firsthand, like, what that can do for families that are stuck for long periods of time at places like Children's. And, it's the best place for their kids to be as far as getting care, but it sucks that you have to be there.
Yeah.
And so I just said, thank you for that. And then they asked our story about how we, got into it, and they ended up giving us they're like, oh, sorry, this is kind of our demo one, but you can have it for your kiddo.
Yeah.
Going in for it. And so I brought home the teddy bear and the blanket, gave it to my son. I said, I made some new friends today, and they wanted you to have this. And when we were going back and getting ready for a pre-op the next week, I said, you can bring a stuffy with you if you want. He goes, I want to bring my new teddy bear. I said, all right, let's go find it. And so we were down in the basement digging through his bin of stuffies and said, well, what's Stuffy's name? He's like, well, you didn't tell me. I said, no, it's your bear. You get to name it. He goes,
yeah.
Ooh. And he paused for a moment and just kind of looked up, pensively and just said, I'll name him Whiskey of the Mountain. And so we said, all right, Whiskey of the Mountain is going to be, a beer. And so we had partnered up with Hugs from Hunter to do a teddy bear. We did teddy beer hugs.
Okay.
And so we did, it was a sea salt and chocolate caramel brown ale because their bears come in two colors.
Sound like that really sucked.
Yeah, it's terrible. I think I saved a few bottles in the back. We'll find one or two of them for you before the end of the season. That can be a Christmas present going out. And so we took that beer and then we did a barrel aging. I took my son down to the local liquor store and I went down the shelf of the whiskeys and just said, all right, here's all the ones that have like mountain either in their name or in their roots. Like you get to pick it. And so he picked out, I don't know if I can plug or say, but Tin Cup whiskey on that one. So he picked Tin Cup whiskey. And I said, all right, we'll grab a bottle and we'll soak some oak cubes in it. And we'll make a little mini batch and call that Whiskey of the Mountain. Okay. Later that afternoon, I'm flipping through my 10,000 emails that I get a day. And one of them is from a barrel broker. And I said, fresh dump Tin Cup whiskey if you want pallets. And so I brought in 8 of them and we made a bigger batch of it. And so we did some barrel aging on that one. So
nice.
That was kind of the first barrel aging that we ever did. And it was a kick to do it because it was, all right, there's a cause behind it and let's get into it. We don't have a ton of space for like a barrel aging program like some of the big guys will have, tons of extra warehouse corner and racks and a forklift. My forklift is if I get, a few extra beers in me and we call it Fat Strong. You just carry it like it's an extension of your gut. And so if you fat strong, if you can fat strong something around, well, that's how we triple stack kegs. But otherwise, all of these barrels are just on rolling casters, so we can move them around. They're one level high, and they work great for sound absorption when we have a band or any acoustic music over here because they'll help absorb some of the sound from bouncing around. But otherwise, they're just a notch over decorative, and they are more on the experimental side. But it is fun to fit the vibe.
I'm going to use that term next time I go in for a physical, and my doctor's like, oh, you need to cut down. You're bordering on obese. I'm like, I think you meant fat strong. Thank you. Yeah,
it's carry it like it's an extension of your gut. I'm sure that's not OSHA approved for lifting technique, but it's there.
Right. Now, the first time I met you was up at Lupulin, and there was some sort of a charitable thing. Was that for...
That was our pairing with Brewed with Heart, and Lupulin they did an awesome job. They did a beer. We kind of... we collabed on a brew, and then they did an extra barrel aging on it as well, which was delightful. Abby Connor set that all up, and the guys up at Lupulin, Jeff and Aaron are awesome people, like the whole crew. I love all those guys, and they were a blast to hang out with, and I joked that was my first time getting to actually tinker on a big boy brew system because, I mean, you were in the back and you saw I'm on a 3-barrel system, but I'm basically a giant homebrew setup. Yeah. Like it's fun, but it is compared to the bigger guys that have massive production. And that was even kind of their test setup, compared to their big guy in the back. But
and it's not the 30-barrel workhorse that
just
pumps
cranking
out the hooey.
cranking all day, every day practically. But we got to play on the 10-barrel, and sitting down and designing a recipe with those guys was super fun. And and they donated a bunch of money to a great cause that all ended up going towards Ronald McDonald House and any other CHD causes that we have that we can push towards. Campo Dayan's a great one that we do locally. They do a summer camp for heart kiddos.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's great. They do a lot of, I love it when, sometimes, owning and operating a brewery is a lot of work, but there's definitely opportunities for philanthropic endeavors. And I love it when places realize that and kind of lean into that because beer can do a lot of good. Yep. And so that's cool because, there's so many people. I mean, you're obviously like a big part of your local community, but then when you start to kind of pair up with other breweries who have kind of like that same mindset, I know they do their Pints for a Purpose, and they do a lot of great things for charity.
Absolutely.
And
every month they get a different cause that they.
I think that's great because you have a built-in audience coming in, and most people that want to support a local craft brewery are the type of people that want to support a good cause. Mm-hmm. So that's really exciting. Okay, so now this is the porter.
That is our base porter. It's one of our few, we'll say, uncreatively named, and it just was because it was our base starter, and we had that in my garage of, all right, this will be our starting porter, just as, like almost not necessarily a nod or a copycat. Badger Hill had their foundation stout. I'm like, all right. Yeah. I'll just put that on in my little garage notebook. All right, this is our base porter, and if we do a chocolate cherry one or if we do a coffee one or anything like that, that was our base starter that we had. And it just kind of stuck because we brewed it for opening week or whenever we were going. I'm like, all right, well, it's already on a label, and I registered it with the state, so I guess it's our base porter now.
I would imagine that this has a very wide appeal.
It does. And, just because you get those people that, I don't want to say are happy because there's actually a dark beer on in the summertime. If they come in and enjoy, oh, do you have any porters or stouts? Yeah, we have this, our base porter, and it's not necessarily settling, but it is just a very clean cut porter style brew.
It's nice and roasty. You get a little, like, kind of a hint of, there's almost like a hint of molasses. There's also a little bit of that, I'm sure there's no smoked malt in here, but there's a little bit like a roasty.
It is toasty on that one, and part of that is also because our small system is an electric system too, so you do end up, I've found, getting a little bit more toast out of some of those darker malts just as they're coming through because of the elements that are in our boil kettle. Yeah, but otherwise it's mostly it's Rars 2-row, and then a bit of Crystal 45, Crystal 60, and some dark English roasted barley in there just to give us a nice.
It has a great character. State. The malt character in this is really satisfying. That's really good.
I think I'll have one with you.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good. I wish I saw more porters on tap. There's no shortage of stouts out there, but porter is it's a good style too. I wish more people would kind of lean into that. Why do you think why do you think more people just go stout versus porter? They're quite similar, but
they're very similar indeed. But I think part of it just ends up coming down to marketing. Yeah. In that sense of it, just a stout. It almost seems like one less syllable or however it comes out. Yeah. Is gonna be easier to market. Yeah. And if you look at IPAs, there's so many IPAs that aren't technically a pale ale, but if they fit the category of hoppy and it's easy to describe, then people are going to roll with that. Yeah. And, it's more pop culture and the marketing side of it than it is the actual brewing style or the brewing culture that drives that as far as what it is or what's being more popular. So I know that's not much of a soapbox opinion as it is just kind of my observation on the side of it. Yeah. But it was, my brother giving me shit for Boathouse Brothers Brewing Company. He's like, that's a lot of words to say when you're drunk. He goes, what about just 3B? 3B. He goes, because people can just spit out Bud easy, and that's why it works at dive bars when people are already shit-faced. Yeah. So, well, I don't need people to be hammered to drink my beer, but your marketing side is great as far as that goes, because then I started filling out paperwork and having to handwrite Boathouse Brothers Brewing, .com. It's a lot of extra letters.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I had it written down here. I think I was going to try to say Boathouse Brothers Brewing brand, and then I'm like, no, I'm not going to say that.
Not touching that.
By the time we get to that talking point, I'll be well into my pints and quarts.
We'll be into the second flight by there.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. No, this porter is delightful. Yeah. So I think on this first flight, the Pontoon Pilsner is delicious. If you are into the kind of, I call it old school IPA, kind of just like you got a little bit more bitterness in there, a little bit more malt for balance. Mm-hmm. That one is fantastic. And then this porter is really outstanding. Now, I want to, Deck the Halls for a take on a seasonal is unique and refreshing. And that's also really awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun one. We actually got it on tap a couple, like I said, we're so small we don't distribute a whole lot, but that's the one beer we've got on tap over at Buck Hill, has it for their Deck the Hills, and then the VFW down the street took a keg or two of that too, so we're happy to see that kind of making its push out and about, comparatively so to the big boys that have 10,000 tap handles across the state. It's kind of nice to be, all right, hey, you can find this elsewhere too.
Yeah.
I delivered it in the back of a Kia, but it got out there.
I don't care how it gets to my fridge. I just, or how it gets to the liquor store. I just want it available.
And I say, we'll team effort. You can, just give me a call. We'll fat strong it down to your basement kegerator. We'll get you all set.
That's right. All right, so I want to delve into the...
we'll rotate you out.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I want to talk a little bit and help me kind of understand or help the listeners understand. I think that when people think of Minnesota craft beer, they break it up into different little areas of the state. So you've got, obviously, the Twin Cities, which is the St. Paul, Minneapolis, kind of in the 494, 694 loop. You've got Rochester. You've got Duluth. Central Minnesota, kind of I think about like the St. Cloud area breweries north of the cities. I guess you get, figured 10K in that mix, Alloy, Ayer, Lupulin, obviously. Bad Habit. Yep. There's that kind of collection. Then as you get up towards like Brainerd, you got Jack Pine, Big Axe,
14
Roundhouse, 14 Lakes, that all of those up there.
Cuyuna too. Cuyuna fits into that range.
Yeah, that's close. What's the other one in Jenkins?
Loon.
Yeah, Looney. Not Looney.
Snarky Loon.
Snarky Loon. Yeah, I feel like there's 18 breweries with the word loon in it. I'm like, enough is enough already.
Yeah.
Stop with the loon. I can't keep track.
I still dig it. I mean, if you look at, all right, so this is me back on a slightly defensive side because there is the Boathouse Brew Pub in Ely.
That's right. Okay,
and when we were first opening up and I filed some paperwork and there was some, homebrew forum of we'll say the keyboard warriors of
course.
Just
on beer people.
I can't believe they didn't get a cease and desist yet from Boathouse Brew Pub. And I was like, well, it's Boathouse Brothers. I go, technically, we're like 50% different because it's already a whole extra word. And then the company right. and they're a brew pub. We're not. I'm like, I sent him an email just to make sure it was cool. I explained the story. Like one of my uncles that grew up living in the Boathouse during the summer lives and has lived up in Ely. He was a teacher at Vermilion College for forestry. I'm like, I've been up there. I'm like, just if you have any issues or questions, let me know. Never heard back from them. And then this, the forum that people were chatting about, cease and desist. And I'm like, well, there's like 25 breweries in Minnesota that have lake in their name. Right. Like, and for every lake in Minnesota, there's 10,000 lakes on every t-shirt, but there's actually 15,000 lakes. How many of those lakes have a boathouse on them? So it must be exponentially more boathouses in Minnesota. I go, our ratio of boathouse related named breweries to actual boathouses in Minnesota has got to be so much smaller than lakes. I go, that's got to count for something for originality on us and letting it fly.
Yeah.
I go, so for loons, I suppose, how many loons are on each lake? Are we going to?
Many.
They mate in pairs.
That's true.
And some of them, they go single for the bays. So each bay will only have one mated pair for that one. So I don't know if that knocks down, but that's at least, 30,000 pairs just if you go on lakes alone, potentially.
Yeah, that's true. I had not thought about it in that.
I'm just defending my fellow lake or my fellow loon brewers, however they go.
That's fair. Yeah. Loony. Oh, no. My question was before we got.
Oh, regionally.
Regionally. How do you feel? I mean, so Badger Hill was the first craft brewery kind of south of the cities. Not talking, obviously, Shells. It's been around for a long
this
while.
Region.
Yep,
and we'll call region. So we kind of refer to it as River South or south of the river.
That was my question. As you all, how do you? So River South is how you would describe that. This kind of area geographically.
Yeah. So River South, I think, was kind of. I don't know if it was coined or referenced, but it was kind of almost like a tourism or marketing push for the groups doing like Valley Fair, Mystic Lake, Canterbury, and the Renaissance Festival. And that was River South, land of big fun, and they kind of pushed for that. But south of the river was that Minnesota River. That is a distinct line.
Yeah.
If bridges and traffic are a pain in the ass, would people come down? And when 101 used to flood, nobody would come down from the Chaska side.
Right.
And it would hamper out how much traffic you wanted to deal with on 169 or 35 coming down that way. And so we are in south of the river territory, but there's a whole bunch of breweries down here. We actually have our own little mini passport book, too, that'll get you through. Yeah, 12 of them. I'll grab you one. You can get some stamps on it, too. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what is it called?
It's the South of the River.
South of the River
Brewery Passport.
Okay.
It's pretty easy, and it's a sweet gift deal because it's only $10, and you can come grab one at the brewery, and you can go around and visit all the other...
There are some fantastic breweries down in this neck of the woods. Some of my favorite ones. That, and part of my, I guess, mission, if you want to call it, for this podcast is trying to get the word out about places that either people haven't been or they're like, oh, yeah, there's a whole, I could do a whole Saturday. I mean, you could just drive
if you're
down.
Camping out at Mystic for the concert show.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're going for Midnight Plumbers and whatever our other opening act was.
If you got up at 10 a.m. on Ticketmaster and got the Midnight Plumbers big reunion tour.
I think the VIP wristbands come with an extra pint.
That's right. You can, you're doing that. Obviously, you're going to want a pregame, so you're going to come down 35 and you stop at some of these places. I mean, that's great.
Yeah, no, you can stop in, so we've got, coming in from the Burnsville side of things is we've got, there's Burnsville is Brixworth, Trove, Ineffable. Yep. On that way, you're coming in on 42. We're kind of in the nice thing about us being where we're at is we are I feel like we're in the center of what we got to work with, so there's the guys in Burnsville. We've got 3 breweries up in Shakopee. Brew d'Etat took over where Rotes was.
That's right. Okay.
And they're just out in Jordan. Then you've got Giesenbräu, Montgomery Brewing, and there's 12 of these breweries all around us, but nobody's more than a half-hour drive.
Yeah.
And you can make a little trip stint out of it if you grab, I use it as an example when I'm talking to people about that passport book of, all right, pick a little, pick an arm and shoot out that direction. Yep. You can make it a day out of it and come back home.
Yeah, and if you want to get a little further down, you can hit all the Northfield ones.
Absolutely.
Like Imminent.
You've got Imminent.
Tannenwald. You can go to Chapel's not too far. There's a Keepsake Cidery down there. There's a distillery with the word loon in it.
I was going to say, you're not going to touch on that one, or is that too much loon for you?
Now the perfect transition into the flight number 2. Okay, so PFD would be
personal flirtation device.
Your names, beer names.
I am a sucker for a theme, and that's why I drink in the mornings.
Now, what style is this?
So this is
this is the
sour.
Okay, yeah.
So it is. As kind of a blend. Between
okay.
It's like a kettle sour because it is. Yeah, it's not an open fermentation or a wild fermentation, but it's now kind of shifted into people have used the term conical sour. So we're using a yeast that actually will put off that acidic portion of it rather than pitching with lactobacillus to drop the pH in the tank and doing a traditional Berliner Weiss style.
Is that the sour Vise?
Sour Vise, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a fantastic new addition especially for guys our size, because if I were to do, say a double batch of this in the summertime, we fly through this when it's warm out, especially, people getting that kind of they want that little pucker flavor, sitting drinking in the sun. We got the garage doors open right at the wall here. Trying to do a traditional Berliner Weiss where you're pitching lacto and then reboiling, 2 days later or a day and a half or however you're able to fit that in when you get your pH drop, and then moving that over, fermenting with that. And if you're trying to double batch and you're trying to fit that in too, you're going to hit past your staling point. You're going to end up with oxidation that you don't want. So you can only do single batches at a time. The sour Vise yeast that's, designed to put off some of that lactic acid as it's fermenting through. I can up my production as a small guy almost twofold with the same amount of time. I can put out the same, this double the amount of beer.
Which is huge.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
it gives me more time to go up and bullshit with people at the bar. Like I said, I like being in the tanks. Yeah. I enjoy it. I enjoy the process. I can do the science of it and have fun with that. But I would much rather be up there at the bar because that's where people want to be. That's what I always liked about being on the service industry side, just whether it was in somebody else's restaurant or bar or my own. We're where people want to come out. Nobody comes out because, I got this diagnosis and now I need an IPA.
Yeah.
Everybody else is, I'm at Verizon or T-Mobile because my phone broke and I have to be there for 2 years. But nobody says, I have to go sit at the brewery. You know, aside from that one lady that needed to calm down before she went grocery shopping.
Yeah. And I hope
I guess that counts as Costco. I don't know if that counts as medicinal, but if I can sign off on it.
Yeah. This is definitely has that tart. I call it this is not an official term, but like the Frankenstein. You know, Frankenstein has those metal bolts right here. I give it, you know, when you get a real tart thing that kind of gets you behind the ears a little bit, it gives you a little bit of...
Yeah, it makes your tongue click and you see a little dryness back there. Yeah, so the PFD definitely does have that pucker factor where it dries out on the back side there. And we even have some people that do, and you see quite a few breweries pushing the blends too, which I love. Is, you know, we have 20 beers. There might not be the perfect one for you right there. We're going to try it. But if you want that pucker, you want that fruit, but you don't need as much of that pucker. We have plenty of people that come in and they do the half and half, and they'll blend
what would you cut this with?
The pontoon. It's about the same ABV. Try it. This is your pontoon pint right there. Dose it in. It's just like when you're drinking a scotch and they say put a little water in to open it up.
Okay, I'm going to open it up.
And so they'll do that, and they'll just go, can I do that half and half? And it takes down that pH drop, so you don't have as much of the pucker factor, but you still get the fruit in the nose. You still get the flavor of it. You still get almost the equivalent ABV.
Oh, yeah.
But it's an entirely new beer without being too divergent from what you started with.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, it has knocked down the tartness a lot, but you still and when I say tart, I don't mean that to be like, it's not off-putting. Sometimes you'll try a beer and it is like,
sucks the filling out of your teeth.
Got a lemon enema, but this was very tart, but like in the best possible way. But if tart is not your thing, cut it with a little pontoon and you're off to the races.
Yeah, that's what we say. When people say, I like fruity. Well, during the summertime, if we have our Tres Olas is, lemon, lime, kind of citrus Mexican lager, we've got that ready to go for you. But if they come in right now, I've got that Deck the Hulls, still has that sweetness and a little bit that cranberry gives it some fruity side to it. But if you want more, all right, try the PFD. And if that makes your nose scrunch up a little bit too much on the pucker side, all right, cut it with the pontoon, and it makes it for a fun little pint that's your own.
Now, tell me about sailgating. Is this
that's our
Japanese rice lager?
So it's a light rice lager. It's not necessarily Japanese style. We have tinkered with one of those in the past, and it didn't even have a name. It was just one of our test light rice lagers that we were dinking around with.
Okay.
But sailgating has been one that we've done for the last 2 years, and we just kind of kick it off around football season. So it's instead of in the parking lot, if you're on the beach waiting for kickoff.
Yeah,
that's your football beer that we've got for that one. So you can crush a bunch of them before and after the game.
Yeah,
it's at like 4.3%, so you can put a few of them back and still behave.
Now, I don't want to hazard a guess as to how old you are, but I'm 45. One of the things that I've noticed when I got into my 40s was not that my desire to drink has diminished in any way, shape, or form, but I've kind of changed. I still want to do the same volume, but I can't do like the 7% beers like I could in my 30s.
You don't need it to pay for it in the morning.
I want this. And I want to sit down with my friends at a brewery or, wherever it is and just enjoy these crisp, satisfying, flavorful beers, but like not to the point where I can't afford to not be in commission.
There's intoxication. There's intoxicating Sunday, and there's inebriating.
Right. Yeah. And so like I think when I was at a brewery in Denver called Novel Strand, they had a lot of low ABV beers, and the owner / brewer was like, I want people to come here, and if they get drunk, it's accidental. But like I'm not the place to go if you want to get smashed.
Yeah.
Like people can go to bars for that or different breweries for that. But like I want people to come in with their friends, have a good time, and if it gets to the point where like, oh my gosh, we've been here for 4 hours drinking beers, having a great time. I'm going to call an Uber now. Like that's like okay.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so beers like this allow for that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things as drinking habits have changed. How have you at Boathouse responded to that? I mean, definitely People are not drinking like they used to, especially the youngsters. I cannot fathom. I can't wrap my brain around why somebody would not want to come into a place and have 4 or 5 beers. And I don't know what that says about me, but I think, like, in the most responsible way, I like to drink more than
it should. As long as you're with people you like to be with,
exactly.
That beer should carry you through, and it is. I find myself. Sometimes I'm having to hold this microphone with 2 hands because otherwise I would permanently be drinking. It would cut down on my verbiage. But, you know, and I joke with people that come in and say, oh, when do you do tours? And I said, well, we can stand anywhere in the brewery and I can give you like 90% of the tour because we're so small. You can see almost everything. I can point it out. And I go, and if you don't mind the fact that if I have more than a pint, I go, you're not going to get me to shut up for a little while. If you keep asking questions, we'll have something to talk about. And that's the way it should be.
And that's why I love a podcast. I can ask a question.
You're dialed in for this.
Just sit back and listen.
No, and we actually, we shifted from, I joked already today that, we're on the largest homebrew scale set up in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But it was taking our homebrew recipes that we had before we went, and we plugged them in, and we just started scaling them up to, all right, here's 3 barrels instead of 10 gallons.
Yeah.
We started going, and like our cream ale, the thermocline, is 6.3% here because the efficiency of a bigger system is so much more that I wasn't, we knew it was going to be something different, but we had no idea how it was going to come out. We were so hamstrung by construction timelines that we opened when we did. So we opened on 4/20 of 2018, and people were like, oh, we kind of got the stoner vibe. You're going for that one intentionally? I said, no, we opened April 20th because if we didn't, we wouldn't have paid rent on May 1st. And it was one of those, we're ready to go. Here's the beers that we have open. Yeah. And I think we started with like 6 on the line. By day 3, I had 2 more carved up, and we're trying to push it. And we had holes in our... one of our line, we had a leak in our bulk CO2 tank in the back. So I'm trying to carb up like 3 and 6 barrel tanks with 5-pound CO2 tank, just trying to push it through. And it was a shit show.
Fun.
And that's why I just lived here. I slept on those pontoon boat seats like for about the first month.
And that's when Midnight Plumber wrote his most consequential album to this decade.
It was a gritty
called
30
Leak
days.
in the Hose.
That does fit.
Yeah.
Jives. All right, we'll come up with something. And so it was one of those things where like, all right, well, this is our thermocline. We put it on, and not knowing how it was going to go, like it ended up being one of our most popular beers when we first opened up because people wanted that. We were playing the game of what's your lightest beer, and then we'd take a sip, and then they'd have 4 of those, and they would realize it's not a 4.2%, Coors Light. It was 6.3%, and it got people up there, but it was popular. So we didn't change the name, and we were kind of dialing down. Like our sup, which is in that 4% range. It's pulled back a little bit. And we've since dialed, planning some of our brews aimed for the more approachable side as far as ABV goes. We originally started with, we want drinkability. We want people to enjoy it. And we know that can happen with a higher ABV. It's been there and on the same recipe scale that we've had, but now just planning for longevity and saying, all right, what can people sit down for?
Right.
A 4-pack. If we sell a 4-pack to the local liquor stores, if somebody's going to want to grab that, is that, the holiday beer, Deck the Hulls, if we had that at 6.9%, it's kind of, all right, well, I'd have one of those, but not much. But if you put a 4-pack in the fridge and family comes over for Christmas, you drink 1 or 2, you can go back to the fridge and crack a few of those, and you're still behaving just fine in front of grandma and the aunts and uncles and everything like that.
And also, like, from the business standpoint, you want, if somebody's coming in and all your beers are, I mean, there's quite a few breweries where this is an issue for me. You walk in, you want to have a couple beers, and it's like the lowest beer is 7%, 7.5%. Then I'm having 2. And I need to go. Mm-hmm. If a brewery has, I'll say Arbiter, for example, because I love what they have. The 4.5%, 5% beers are plentiful. Mm-hmm. So you can go and have several over the span of an evening, and that's great. So like, why, if I were opening, here's my metaphorical bar napkin. If I were going to open up a brewery, I would make sure 2/3 of my taps were all, 5.5% or lower
or under
for that very reason. I want people to come. I want this to be the place where people coming off the lake are coming in for their refreshment after taking a break. I want my tabletop gamers to come in and set up their intricate board game and stay for 4 hours and hang out. I want to get people to have this be their third space.
Yeah.
And I think that the beers that you have here are very conducive for that. And so I'm appreciative of it, and I like the variety and just having sessionable beers makes a big difference.
You can have a few and still behave yourself, and you'll be all right. We started doing our non-alcoholics too through ABV Tech up in St. Paul. They've been super helpful with keeping us rolling on having an NA cream ale on tap.
Okay.
And we've got that on tap in a glass, ready to go. So, obviously plenty of other people offer other options too. Yep. And if you've got say Athletic or one of those other ones that, are just in a can ready to go, there's an option for somebody who doesn't want to drink, whether it's 4.5 or 5.5, they want a half or lower.
Yeah.
And then we've got the local root beer, Glevy's Castle, is a local dude.
Oh yeah.
That's the gentleman up at the bar, Mark, the big one. What do you call it? Waldorf,
Stadler and Waldorf. Which one is he? Stadler or Waldorf?
He's more of a Waldorf.
Okay,
but he's the
I remember
local
having
guy.
that when I first started going to beer festivals in Minnesota, circa 2010. I would see that. I'm like, oh, because I love. Sprecher's root beer. Nothing better.
That's great.
So Glevy's Castle.
Yeah, Mark Glevy is.
Okay,
he's my Waldorf.
That's hilarious. Yeah, he was here before I got here. He's still up there. That's awesome. All right, now I am a sucker for Doppelbocks. So this is the Impersonator.
So that was one of our first Mutiny Series beers. So Abby's husband, Matt Connor, actually was in and helping out kind of part-time, just kicking around in the back when we first opened up. And he and George were... still avid home brewers and wanted to come up with their own recipes. So that's where we started the Mutiny Series, where they kick the captain off the ship and they get to take over. I said, all I'm responsible for is ordering the grain.
Okay.
And so Matt was the impersonator of taking the place of the captain and wanted to put together his Doppelbock recipe.
Oh, that's nice too.
He came in this last fall and we brewed the batch and got it back on the tap lines because we hadn't had it the last year or two.
Okay.
But
yeah, this is a nice beer for this time of year when you want something with a little bit more heft, but you don't want a stout. And I think there's some really good German styles that do lend themselves to kind of checking off that box.
If you move yourself, from alt beers up through, Doppelbocks, anywhere in that range, we'll hit you. We do our beer run club on Tuesdays. And we used to run down, during the summertime, we started doing it this past June. We'd run down through the park and the lake just nearby here. And it was about just under a 2-mile loop. And we'd come back.
Okay.
If you have a beer beforehand, you get a free one and you come back. And we did that.
Oh, nice.
And then daylight savings hit. And the group of guys, we were going for a run at 6 o'clock. I'm like, oh, shit, it's dark. Two of us had headlamps, and I was like, this is a safety hazard going through. I'm like,
it's a safety hazard when I'm trying to run at 3 p.m. in July.
Yeah. So we did that, and we shifted. Now our winter route just goes around downtown, and we run past the police department and the library, come back by City Hall, run around the back of the brewery, and we come back in, but we just pour 4-ounce flights, so it equals a pint, but you just do a mini beer every lap. If you come out of the cold and have that impersonator waiting for you, I poured myself a 4-beer flight of just impersonators last week when we were doing it, and it was just, it's so good with that maltiness just coming in.
Yeah.
Warms you up a little bit, but you still get the refreshing side of it.
Malt is such everybody loves to go gaga for hops, but, there's some great breweries that really showcase malt in a fun way, and I think you have a lot of malty offerings on tap, which is nice.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of people when they think malt, it's like, well, it has to be a big beer. Not necessarily. First and foremost, on a 1-pint stand, we always preach moderation. But if you are somebody who wants to order beers 2 at a time, and you wanted to do the Pilsner and an impersonator, let the impersonator kind of sit there, warm up a little bit. It will
absolutely
only get better.
It'll build character as it goes.
All right, looks like the next beer on the line is the Captain's Table.
Yeah, so since we were just talking about low ABV and the virtues of it,
right?
Let's jump into a 16.2%.
Now for something completely different.
Yeah. 3 ounces later.
Oh wow!
So it's a fun barley. We call it our Thanksgiving barley wine.
Oh,
but it's
yes.
like Thanksgiving leftovers. I don't know. My son did the artwork for the bottle, and it's got the leaves and everything to it. But it could still fit for Christmas.
Yeah.
But we joke that it's everything from Thanksgiving dinner except for the turkey and the green beans.
Yeah.
So it's got the we did flaked maize in the mash bill and sweet potatoes and wild rice.
Okay.
And then we did brown rice and cranberries in the boil with that one, and then just boiled her down for it. We did an extra long boil on it, so it kind of, we'll say, concentrated everything up. So it's a hearty beer, but it drinks super smooth.
So that's
But it's been sitting. We've been aging it in the basement for like a year now.
Okay. Yeah, there's no sharp edges on this.
No, for being 16.
And sometimes, well, this is going to be the second time I talk about Andy from Northbound. Andy, the city elf, as he's known in certain circles. But he has a shirt, Maris the Otter, that says barley wine is life. He is obsessed with barley wines. And English-style barley wines, especially for me, fall into a style that I will never, ever get enough of. This kind of like that almost leathery malt character, dark fruit, dark cherry, toffee quality, all mixed in. Mm-hmm. And I think when you combine all those things together, you create such a wonderful sipping beer. This is fantastic.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it was a fun one to do. And it was just kind of on a whim. We had a bunch of extra wild rice that my wife's uncle, who used to be a state park ranger.
Okay.
He's got some, we call it his secret lake up north. I'm sure it's not actually secret and you can publicly access it, but him and his buddies, they built their own canoes and they go out and they go ricing and they go harvest their own rice. And so he would give that out as kind of like a Christmas present of here's your bag of wild rice that everybody got. And I said, how can the brewery get like an extra 25 pounds or 30 pounds? And he said, well, if we can make a beer with it. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm thinking. So we do a wild rice Pilsner that's Uncle Chuck's wild rice. And then he had some left over, and I said, I want to make that as part of our Thanksgiving dinner, because to me, like those Thanksgiving and Christmas meals, dude, if it doesn't have corn and wild rice, like my plate doesn't look complete. So it's got to have that in there. Yeah, we weren't sure. I went through a couple different name iterations. It was like the kitchen sink, or the galley sink, everything but that kind of thing. And we're like, all right. And then it was, if you get invited to the captain's table if you're on a cruise ship, and it was the fanciest place you can be. I'm like, yeah, Boathouse is. We are by no means a fancy place, as you can hear by the we got pinball machines going on in the background.
Yeah,
now.
Don't worry, we're not it's not a militia meeting. It's just a pinball.
Cactus Canyon is going nuts right now.
Yeah,
we'll see if they move over to the October. We do have Oktoberfest pinball if you're looking for.
That could be good.
Machine.
We should ask them if they're gonna. Hey, try this one too, so we get all sorts of the sound effects
from both of them.
But I love that. That's why, like, a lot of times when people ask, like, well, we have an office we could record the podcast. I'm like, no, I want to be in the tap room because, like, the ambient noises. I think that's only
what's
adds
going on.
to it.
Yeah.
I want people to listen to this and feel like they're here with us. Yeah. So this is, what did you say? 16?
16.2%.
16.2. So not a session beer.
Not. Well, it depends on how big your session is.
Exactly.
And when your cab is on order.
Yeah. And this, if you wouldn't have told me how high ABV it was, I would not have guessed, because this drinks very smooth. So
it drinks more like an 8.
Deceptively strong, because it does not, sometimes you drink an 8% beer and you're like, Jesus, is this 16%? Mm-hmm. But this is the opposite of that. And I think that's
stealthy.
Yeah, that's so age probably helps with that, but also just kind of understanding. I imagine I know nothing about brewing other than I like the finished product, but I imagine to brew a bigger beer like this is probably challenging in the same way it would be to brew the pontoon pilsner.
Yeah, so that's that tipping of the scales. Both sides of that seesaw is all right. Pilsner, like a light, 4. Anytime you're getting under 5%, there's less you can, for lack of a better term, hide.
Yeah.
If you're going in that mid 6s and an IPA and you're throwing in a ton of hops, you can hide a little bit of, say, oh, this one got too hot in the mash, or this one didn't ferment as clean, but with all those extra esters and everything else running around, the hops are going to cover some of that up, or not even cover it up, but they'll blend in and they'll incorporate it, and they'll make good use of a beer that has, we'll say, some changes or some, we'll say, variations from a strict recipe. But if you get into those lighter pilsners, I'm sure everybody has told you that you've ever sat down with, is just like, those are the trickier ones to brew.
Yeah.
They're fun because they are a little bit of that challenge of you have to maintain a stricter schedule on it. You're looking at tighter windows on when you're doing diacetyl rests and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you can still get that nice, crisp, light drinking beer that's just like, that's kind of that reward. Like when people ask, oh, what's your favorite beer to drink? I go, it depends on which line I have to clear is my canned response.
Yeah.
I go, but then after that, it depends on what I'm doing. If I just finished up a shift and I've been in the tanks all day on a hot summer day,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm coming out and I'm having a pontoon or a sailgate.
for sure.
I'm crushing one of those. I go, but
Yeah.
if I'm sitting around with dinner, all right, maybe a General Quarters or an IPA, and if it's around a campfire, sweet, something malty, I go with one of those. Like I feel bad that I pigeonhole myself into those, we'll say the tropes of these are when you drink these beers, but they just kind of fit.
So the last one here, Mom.
Oh, yeah. So Mom is, that's kind of we'll say the lovey name that my son gives to my wife. It was just how he'd always repeat it. It was Mom. And it started out with Munich on Main.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Because this place used to be called O'Malley's on Main, and then it became one of the dive bars after that was Memories on Main.
Sure.
So people knew this as Mom's.
Oh, okay.
And so it just kind of fit that Mom would be the iteration of our Munich on Main that we developed as just kind of a one-off Hearttoberfest beer that we do for our Charity Fall series.
Okay.
And then we said, all right, well, if we're going to give it that name and put a label on it, we'll make it a little bit truer to the cause for our Brewed with Heart side of things. And so we called it Mom. It's the Munich on Main, but just twice because we love it that much.
That's cool. Did you find it, when you first opened, did you find it challenging to kind of differentiate yourself from other bars in the immediate area or like other craft breweries in the area?
We'll say yes and no. And that's, I know, kind of a cop-out answer to start with. But if it lays the groundwork for a lengthy explanation over another pint, then I'm always for talking.
Me too.
Thank you. No, so we, differentiating in Prior Lake, for those of you listening that haven't been down to this fine town that we're in, there is a little bit of everything. There is, we got Charlie's on Prior, which is the, one restaurant that's on the lake. And then there's, we've got, starting from one end of Main Street, we've got Plate, which is a, fancier dinner date night spot, but you can also get a great happy hour burger and a beer if you want down there. There's the VFW, which fits the category for every VFW that you've ever been to, but with a new facelift that they just put on last year. So it's an awesome joint. Extra Innings is like 3 blocks away, and that was my lunch spot that I'm putting in air quotes that you guys can't see, because my lunch was at 12:30 in the morning when I'd call down and I'd say, would you fire up that pizza oven? I'm going to come down for a Haggis pepperoni and sausage and a Captain Diet, so I have some caffeine to keep me going on this remodel while I'm just ripping out walls or tearing up stuff while we were doing the rebuild on it. And then we've got on the other side, Sulago's, another swanky joint on the other end of us too. And so there's, on Main Avenue, we've got a little bit of everything, but Prior Lake didn't have a brewery yet. The closest we were, excuse me, was the building out back of us, which is owned by our gas station neighbors, was a holding point for the Schmidt Brewery distribution center when the train used to go through town. So there's a little bit of land
that's an
that kind of
interesting
juts out.
historical tidbit.
Yeah, if you go down 21 here, like 3 or 4 blocks, you'll go across the Wagon Wheel Bridge over by where they'll be holding the Bullhole event.
Oh, sure.
You'll see it from there. But just to the right, you'll see like a weird jut of land. And then if you look at historical maps, you realize, oh, that's definitely where they built land for a railroad to go across that part of the lake. And it's because the railway went like right through this part of town. And the Schmidt kegs would go on the back. So that was the little history bit that I got was there hasn't been a brewery in Prior Lake, but that's as close as we got. Was we held a bunch of beer. And so now hopefully we're getting to brew a bunch of beer that will make its way out. I don't know if we'll quite hit that distribution scale where we need rail cars, but you never know.
This is just kind of like a call to action for anybody listening. Like, there are so many great places to have a beer in Minnesota. And I want to challenge everybody that, in 2025. So put this as one of your goals as you're looking to lose whatever 5 pounds or, whatever New Year's resolutions you have. But the industry's hurting right now. It's hard. I know that. And every single brewery would appreciate people going out, stopping by. If you haven't been to a place, try to set a goal for yourself of visiting one new brewery
a month.
Yeah. That's very doable. I'm sure there's people in Prior Lake that have never been here.
It's astounding. How many times I still have people that come in and are like, oh, this is great. Like, they'll come in. We have the farmer's market out front every Saturday during the summer. And somebody inevitably every week wanders in and says, when did you guys open? You knew? And I said, well, kind of. I mean, compared to, the VFW. Yeah. I was like, or the lumber yard across the street that's been there for 80 years.
We're not as old as sliced bread.
Yeah. Betty White's got us. But other than that, we've been open, like, see, oh, we didn't know that. And I'm like, oh, you guys, new to town? They're like, yeah, we just moved here like 20 years ago. I'm like, well, you've got the brewery by 300%, so that's okay. What part of town? They're like 3 blocks away. And so it's just amazing what people don't know, and you look at it, and then I go home and tell my wife, I'm like, do I have to up my advertising game? Like, where is our marketing? And are these people using Snapchat? I highly doubt it, but maybe that's not where it's at. I'm like, I'll go deliver flyers, mailbox, door to door. Do I do that? And we go trick-or-treating in a new neighborhood this fall? Like, who knows what we have to do? But you still run into people that don't know craft beer is out there. The same people were unaware that the VFW was down the street that I made the joke about. They thought they moved long ago because that used to be a movie theater. Like, who knows? And so it's everybody's a little different in that sense, but.
I feel like this is like the type of place where, like, if you were coming in for the first time, you'd be like, oh, this is so cool. I'm jealous of anybody who can walk a couple blocks to get to a brewery. Like, for people, like, if you live down the street from a brewery, go check them out if you haven't been. Yeah. Because this is hard times. And I think, do you feel like, I know I read an article online that said this is the first year in a long time that there were more, like, overall in the entire country in the U.S., there were more closures than openings.
I would believe it. I didn't see the same study or even announcement, but like it makes sense when you look at a couple of Facebook closures of a few of our friends and we see, hey, just shutting it down. Yeah. Compared to, when we opened, I joked that Spiral and I have the bet of who's. Not necessarily a bet, the competition of who's brewery number 120. Because when we opened, we're like, oh, sweet, we're brewery number 120 opening. Yeah. And then I got to chat with one of the owners. Oh, we opened April 20th. Yeah, us too. Oh, same day. I'm like, all right, what time did you open? 3 p.m. I'm like, shit, us too. So we did a collab brew with them for our birthday beer last year.
Oh, that's fun. Okay.
And hopefully we'll do another one with them soon for that one. We got actually some of the grain is sitting right over there that's waiting for it as soon as we get our act together.
Okay.
But it was just one of those things of like, all right, there's 120 breweries when we opened 6 years ago. Now there's 200 plus. Yeah. But we're seeing quite a few close this year, and it's not necessarily, I don't know, I'm not the economist, but you look at it, it's when people were worried about where's the bubble hitting, maybe not necessarily a bubble, but until every town gets its own form of brewing.
It's not a bubble.
Yeah.
But people perceive it that way. But there's just like I think there's like, and like costs. It's like the perfect storm of different things that
it takes a lot to run a brewery.
Oh yeah,
on a macro or micro scale.
Yeah,
and sometimes it doesn't fit, and you see that it could change hands too.
One of my fears, and I'm curious for your input on this, but as costs steadily creep up, and now you have the, I never want to talk politics on this podcast because I don't
ask about tariffs.
Yeah. I'm curious.
The last time tariffs went up on aluminum, it went up. I can't remember because we weren't doing much canning back then, but I think it was I don't know, 40% or something like that on the actual can itself, which isn't a majority of the beer or the cost, but it's still, if that all adds up, I don't have enough space to stockpile aluminum. I've got room for 2 pallets back there. One of them is crowlers and one of them is 16 ounces, and it's I can only order the 16 ounces in half pallet size.
Well, and I think it's, for people listening, what does that impact you? Because I think people hear tariffs and they hear the word, they know whether they agree with it or not. Mm-hmm. But you as a small business owner with your space constraints, individually for a Boathouse, what will that mean?
Yeah. So if it does go the way of anything, coming in over the border, all of our beers that are true to style, German lagers, are coming. They're being imported, so that'll affect the grain cost on, I'd say, 30 to 40% of our beers are, when we try and do a style, we try and do it, true to style.
Yeah.
If it's an English dark ale, we're bringing in English grains.
Right.
BSG, which we're happy to have as a super close neighbor. I'm one of the tiniest breweries in Minnesota, but I'm the third or fourth.
Epic purveyor of Christmas tree skirts.
Oh, so that's actually Bountiful Bag. Did that? There are a couple of gals out of, I think they're in California.
Wireman. Okay.
So they made they do some really cool stuff out of reusing our grain bags, which they're super durable. There's a local Boy Scout troop leader that saves them for sit squares for his troops, so they can have a dry place to sit when they go do their camping out in the woods because they're waterproof.
Yeah.
But Bountiful Bag did the stockings that we have. I met the gals at one of the brewers conferences things, and I think they even did a jean jacket grain bag combo for Abby and a dress for somebody else at RAR.
Okay.
And so I was chatting with them. I'm like, I got your stockings.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a request. I go, I put a big tree in my tap room. I go, could you make me a tree skirt using the RAR bags and the Wireman bags because they're red and green? And they're like, we don't know if we can get it to you this year, but you'll be our first one to send out next year. And so sure enough, last year when we were setting it up, it was the first thing in the mail right after Thanksgiving. I had my tree skirt from those gals that
That's awesome.
Put that together. But they're awesome. But yeah.
So grain costs.
Yeah, grain cost is going to go up. Any of that aluminum is going up. Kegs, there is a floating supply, but pretty much, any keg that you see in a beer cooler in America, there's a 99% chance it probably came from a Chinese stainless manufacturing plant.
Right.
It's just the way that goes. We still get our supplies from a group that's up in mid Minnesota, but they'll do the screen printing and the stamping for us. But I'm sure they're sourcing out of there. I can't quote it, but I know it's going to be an effect on anything that way too. Same thing with the aluminum if you're recycling and bringing in
raw materials. We're talking grain. We're talking packaging material.
And if you're doing any of the hops, there's big crops up in Yakima Valley, but again, if you're bringing in true to form Czech hops, all of the New Zealand and Australian hops that are coming in for hazies, juicies, that kind of stuff, people are playing around with a lot of great hop strands that are imported, and it could play a factor on that one too. Who knows what you got stocked up in your freezer and what's coming in for fresh hops, and how that'll play for some of the bigger guys. We're, again, so small that it's not a huge we're not taking out a loan to bring in hops, but also we don't order it a pallet at a time. I order one box at a time because I'm on a 3-barrel system versus the guys that are putting in a 50-barrel tank and they need, a pallet of hops to get them through the week. Like that's my year sometimes.
Right. Well, and I just wonder what will that do? I think that like craft beer, I've watched, the price. I'm old enough to remember when you could go to Dangerous Man back when their tap room was in Northeast, and you pay $5 and get a 20-ounce pour of chocolate stout, chocolate milk stout, and prices have crept up. And one of my fears is that there is this idea that beer is, a working person's drink. Everybody should be able to afford it. I go around to tap rooms now, and a pint is $7-8, and I'm not talking like a double IPA, which I understand. Like those prices can get up there because of raw material costs.
No,
but
I'm
talking like a
right
Pilsner.
Now.
I went to a brewery in Minneapolis, and because of their pricing structure, I paid $11 for a Pilsner. Now, here's my question.
Yeah.
Is that problematic for the overall sustainability and health of craft beer?
If you're looking at the last, like when people were talking about Great Depression, recession, and all that kind of stuff, is when people say they don't drink. They don't necessarily stop drinking. They drink better and less. So, if you're going to enjoy it, if it's not, like you said, the working man's drink, it can still be the working man's drink, but maybe I'm not able to afford, 10 cases that are, and stockpile the side room and just have that ready to go for after work every day. But it's, all right, that's my treat instead of going out. Who knows what the future economy will bring for people's drinking habits. We were just talking a little bit ago about the younger generation is drinking lower ABV or no ABV. There's the shift towards THC cocktails or THC seltzers, RTDs and ready-to-drink beverages instead, too. Where can Minnesota breweries shift because of our liquor laws are a little trickier than some of our outlying states.
Right.
You're stuck with you're only allowed to produce a malt beverage, and so like our seltzer is pulled from the beer that we made for our NA, and it's not distilled or concentrated at all.
Sure.
The legal discrepancy on it is that it's filtered out, and we just have seltzer comes one side, NA comes the other.
Yeah.
And so we can still have those offerings for people that don't want to drink beer. They want a seltzer. People that just don't want alcohol, they can get our NA, and they can have that as an option. And, you're still going to have to find a new way for people to enjoy our space. Like, the way I look at it is I am a brewer, but I have a space downtown, and I want people here.
Yeah.
We created this room with the open area so that people would use it for a birthday party. People would use it for a retirement party. We have a group that comes in here every other Friday morning, and I'm only awake for like 1 out of 8 of those meetings because they do it at like 8:30 or whatever in the morning. I know. For a teacher, that's god awful to hear me saying that that's tough for me in the morning, but I'm usually here till 4, so it kind of balances out. But they use it for that because they put their meetings up on the TV and they just hang out on this side and they go about their day, and they're a bunch of local downtown business owners, and we have a space for them.
Yeah.
They don't have to, rent out and schedule and anything like that. It's here for it. And so I think breweries have that little place in a bit of everybody's heart as the original, when they called them the pub or the public. It was a public house, and it was the space. It was a gathering space.
Yeah, for everyone.
And we still want to be that way.
Yeah.
Liquor laws restrict us from being able to serve you a full glass of wine or a gin and tonic because of our licensing. But if you go to a brew pub, some of those breweries in Minnesota have that licensing, and that allows them that way too. You won't see their beers on liquor store shelves, so it kind of inhibits that way. But there's that give and take. that's completely up for debate amongst more lawmakers in probably, I don't know, like 3 years, then they're allowed to talk about it
we're
again.
Like 2.5 years away from that moratorium being lifted.
We'll see when they allow that discussion to go through.
Right. Yeah.
But is like I said, beer doesn't have to be the best thing. It just makes whatever is your good a little bit better. And the other one is that we used for Brewed with Heart is, beer should save society more than once. It got us through the dark ages, but that's just because people didn't know that boiling it made it sanitary and better than water.
Yeah.
It should be a reason to bring people together and try and save society one more time. If we can do it over a beer, I'm all for it.
Yeah. That's a good segue into my last question.
Yes.
What makes you what are you most proud of when you think about, to those initial bar napkin notes and blueprints? Now that we're sitting here on December 23rd, 2024, like this is an incredible space, and you brew some very delicious beer. What makes you smile at the end of the night when you just think about, like, I'm glad my wife gave me that old tomato.
The old tomato, yes. Oh, Mitch will be so proud to hear that.
What kind of warms your heart when you think about this?
Oh, just the fact that you got to ask me that question, and that it was phrased as 6 years ago. That when I told you when we did that walkthrough, I said, well, here's the old hood vent from the kitchen and the dive bar that was before us.
Yeah.
And we left that in and built a system that would use that because I didn't know if we'd make it year one.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have to pay $50,000 to put a new hood vent in if we had ripped that out. We're now 5 years past that, and we're working on trying to buy the building and turn it into what can we do for the next step. So that's what that is. It's heartwarming and it's encouraging, and it is it's a sense of accomplishment that we are still kicking around, and we've done a bunch of different changes. I mean, that first I joke sometimes with people that say, how's, when they don't know how long we've been around. I said, I feel like we've had our grand reopening like 7 times between actually opening and then the seasonal overload, and then we came back for the next spring, and then it was COVID, and then we were allowed to have people outside, and we got to do street closures. We worked with the local government to be able to block off Main Avenue and do some stuff outside. And then we weren't allowed to do all of that outside, and then we got to have more people inside. But then we got to do some weekend closures, and then we got to do more people inside. And we've had our grand reopening several times. So I feel like the mission behind Boathouse is just lake life beer, and we're having fun. You should enjoy the beer for what it is, but you should enjoy it with the people that you want to be here with. And the fact that we get to keep doing that is the biggest reward, and the side bonus is that we've gotten to a point where I've slightly controlled my brewing schedule a little bit, where I get to go home to my wife and kiddo a little bit more. Because as you talk to, I'm sure every brewery you've chatted with has said, oh, that first 3 months to 3 years was permanently living here. I'll tell you which one of those boat seats is the comfiest one to nap on, and which one's the comfiest to actually stretch out and sleep on. Like, do you need to get up? We've all been there. The only reason I wouldn't let my staff get me a hammock or a cot for the office downstairs is because I needed a reason so I can actually go home and see my family.
Right.
During that first year. And so it's been fun. It has been it's been a crazy journey so far, and I feel like we're just kind of scratching the surface of where it's going to go because of where the drinking future of Minnesota or just society as a whole is. All right, we've shifted to we got slushy drinks. There's a peppermint mocha, slushy that's behind my bar that was not at any of those cocktail napkin sketches 10 years ago. But it's there, and it's delightful. Again, I'm not a coffee drinker, but with that little bit of peppermint on the rim, I'm like, I'm in the Christmas spirit. I can sit here next to this tree and have 2 or 3 of those if we're chatting and, just bumming around. But we can also go back up and have a true, crisp, clean Pilsner like it was designed hundreds of years ago and enjoy that for everything that it is, too. And that's what makes it fun to just kind of be in this space, and the fact that it all kind of started from wanting to do my own thing because I was just bartending to wanting to do my own thing because I was homebrewing to wanting to do my own thing because now there was a space in town and now we get to kind of do our own thing, and it's not just my own thing. Now it's everybody in town and everybody on staff that gets to make it what it is. We have our Mutiny Series beers that are, I'm going to say owned by the staff. Like that's their recipe. They want to do that one. Let's make a beer for everybody here. And we get, all right, our regulars that are hanging out, Statler and Ward, Statler and Waldorf, hanging out at the corner of the bar. We get a couple other people. I joke, I'm like, if that's a reserved seat. My cousin was in visiting the other day, sat down at the bar, and I got a call from one of our regulars that said, "Is my seat open?"
That's just great, though.
I said,
that's what
Brady, is that going to stop you from coming in? He goes, "Nah, I just want to know if it's going to be awkward when I tell him to move." And I was like, well, it's my cousin, so we'll figure it out from there. And turns out they're both Gopher fans, so they got over it, and he was able to shift one chair down.
There you go.
But it's just that, that's the kind of fun that you never think you'd be like. That was never in my business plan, that I'd have to be negotiating seat deals. We thought, all right, maybe if we need to do one of those fundraisers where you put a plaque on a chair, or you can buy this. And
like Norm from Cheers.
Yeah, are you a lifetime member? It's like, no. Are you willing to debate my cousin for a spot at the bar near the TV? All right, fine. Like, is that worth $500 or a gift card or what are we doing? But it's the things that keep going that you'll never expect them. But it keeps it interesting, and that's what always makes it fun versus, like, we'll say, the retail or corporate job that I had been in and done, and it still keeps you busy, but there's a lot of unexpected, even though when you look at it and you're like, this shit again? But it's a different kind of shit, and it's always fun. Yeah.
Well, I am so happy that we got the chance to sit down today and have a conversation about Boathouse Brothers Brewing Company. This is a very unique spot, and the beers are fantastic, and the vibe is even better. So if you haven't been down here to Prior Lake, Minnesota, to experience a true gem in the Minnesota craft beer fabric puzzle, you need to put that on your calendar. So, Emmett, thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
Dan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for just the opportunity to come be on the show with you.
Yeah,
this has been delightful.
This was great. This has been another on-location episode of A One Pint Stand here at Boathouse Brothers Brewing Company in Prior Lake, Minnesota. Cheers.
Cheers.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Emmett Swartout at Boathouse Brothers Brewing in Prior Lake, Minnesota. Emmett is a gracious host with a lot of passion for craft beer. What he has helped create in Prior Lake is a great community gathering spot. Emmett is one of those people who will welcome you in, no matter who you are or where you came from, and his biggest concern is just that you have a good time. And man, do we need that. Now, I want to give a special thank you to Marcus Dodson, Chuck Dorsey, Vicky Epper, Daniel Fisher, Todd Fitzloff, Matt Holton, Cable Lefto, Ben Michaels, Sophia Masagi, Brent Newman, Bree Smith, and Sarah Crivalento for being Kegstander level supporters of the A One Pint Stand Patreon. You've all shown incredible generosity, and I'm grateful for it. Cheers to you all. Now, before we go, I want to give a shout out again to the sponsor for this episode, Bumbling Fool's Mead. Located just off of East Hennepin, their mead hall is cozy and welcoming. Their meads are well made and have an appeal for every palate. Make sure you follow Bumbling Fool's Mead on all their socials so you can keep track of what all the buzz is about. So, thank you so much for listening, and this has been another episode of A One Pint Stand, a Minnesota craft beer podcast where the pants stay on, but the caps come off. Cheers. A hybrid blue cheese. It's like if blue cheese and cheddar cheese ran off to the wine country for a weekend and came back with a love child, that's Stilton.